It was pretty
No,
deep.
okay.
I had to like dig at it and pull some shit out, just constantly alcoholing it. And yeah.
I assume you're wearing
So I've had
shoes?
yeah, I went right through the soles of the shoes though.
That's
Like I
actually
heard
the worst part, yeah, because there's bacteria on the bottoms of your shoes that it can like really mess you up.
Yep, I heard the pop. I literally heard the pop as it went right through the like the rubber part of my sole, and it was like a pop, and then and then just immediate pain. It was
Were you
How hard were you
wearing?
pressing down?
Were you wearing sneakers?
No, I was wearing like loafers, basically like Hey
Oh.
Dudes, those shoes, and
This is the problem. Okay, sneakers are the perfect footwear, right? Like out of all footwears, they're perfectly balanced for any occasion.
especially New Balance.
Yeah.
No, you need to wear those Japanese sandals that are like really high up because you wouldn't actually have pierced your foot at that point.
The wooden clogs, yeah.
Yeah.
Could have fucking done it. Damn, it's a good idea.
If only I got your clogs out that day.
I hope you get a pair of work boots after that. I learned my lesson. The day I put a nail through my foot, I put a nail through the other foot too, and I had to take my socks off and tie around it because I wasn't going to go off the clock. I needed the money. But I learned my lesson.
Wow.
Work boots from then on.
Yeah. Does anyone here and I want to hope the answer is no because I don't want to think less of you. Does anyone here like wear like sandals outside?
No, I wear Jordans like all the time because
I'm
fat.
a Japanese person.
You wear
Just do this.
sandals outside.
And socks. Yes.
This is the problem, okay? All right, look. And I've said this before, and people don't really take this in. You never know. You never know when shit's gonna go down, and you gotta run, right? Like you have no clue. Like if you won't have that warning, shit'll just it'll be real, and you gotta run. You gotta get somewhere safe. You want to have sneakers on.
If I have to run, I'm done, dude.
Okay, but that could happen in your own house. Like, what, do you wear sneakers inside?
Yes,
Of course.
all the time.
Like, why wouldn't I?
I'm heavy and I need ankle support all the time. So, like right now, I'm barefoot, only because I've been at my computer all day. If you're a heavier set person, you understand the need for ankle support.
Wait, you're telling me you can't run in sandals?
I can't run.
You can't run effectively in sandals.
Or watch Samurai Jack? Get out of here.
Can you run like in those wooden clogs? You can run like Samurai Jack in those.
Fuck yeah, I can run in heels, dude. You just don't have enough experience.
That's a false comparison. Okay. He jumped as high as a coup.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. But like, yes, you can. I've seen women run in heels. Fair enough, but they can't pick up maximum speed, and you never know when you'll have to like book it. When every second matters.
You know, there's like a tribe in Africa that like runs on like specifically on like their tippy toes, and they're like actually like the long distance runners. Heels? You basically have to do that.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're gonna have to provide me proof of this.
All right, I'll look it
up. But yeah, so like I'm just saying, guys, like don't take your life in your own hands there, and go outside with ineffective footwear. All right. Like, I mean, if you want to do so, just letting you know, right? You are lowering your chance of survival for that day. They're not there.
Why are you wearing sandals? I'm depressed. I'm just ready for it to be over.
Yeah.
It's a sandal day.
It's a sandal day.
Today's a day for rolling the dice, man.
If the Lord wants to take my life, I won't fight him on it.
To be fair, I wear yoga pants all the time, so that's my version of being prepared to run.
Fair enough. All right, yoga pants helps. Yoga pants and heels.
I feel like if you see me in yoga pants, that's my day that I'm also giving up and rolling the dice.
Yeah.
They're comfortable.
Yeah, that was the highlight of my whole weekend. I stabbed my foot, and then I got a tetanus shot, and now my arm is just so. Those tetanus shots are serious.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've gotten one, but yeah, those aren't pleasant. Okay. Happier news. Donald Trump is going to get sued again for.
Yeah, I heard that. The same thing, basically.
You say happier news and like, did you support Trump, Blacktoid?
No.
Oh, okay. I just know that you're generally conservative. It's like, I don't know if that's happier news to him, and he just stabbed his foot. But fair enough.
Well, he's Canadian, so.
I didn't vote for him. I'm just saying, like, the derangement
You're not
syndrome.
allowed to vote in this country, but
The derangement syndrome's real. We all know it. Come on.
Wait, you're Canadian?
Not Canadian.
Hey,
You fucking lie. This is leftist disinformation. Okay, they're fucking with you.
I just keep calling him Canadian because it pisses him off.
I wish I was Canadian. I love Canada.
What the fuck?
I have called myself an alienated Canadian patriot many times on stream.
Thinking less of you, or like my affection for you is falling drastically by the minute. Like, I tolerate Lactoid in his Canuck ways, but like, to imagine you're an actual traitor, that's completely different, right? Like
I didn't betray anything.
Lactoid can't help like his his origins, right? But to think that you'd admire Canada, all right, well.
I mean, come on. They got a lot of really cool stuff. I feel like Canada is what we pretend to be.
Name one cool thing.
I think they have what's probably objectively the hottest male world leader.
Okay.
I don't know. Zelensky's pretty hot.
We're bringing a lot of old shriveled up guys, and Canada's fucking prime minister's
All right,
got
Trudeau
abs.
or Zelensky? Come on.
Trudeau.
Trudeau's a pretty boy rich guy though. Like Zelensky's like an actor, but he literally proved his salt and like.
And Zelensky's a coke addict. He goes around with his hands out for money 24/7. Wonderful.
Is that what he's doing?
True.
Yeah.
True.
Dude, remember when we used to be friends?
Did you ever see Trudeau shake Trump's hand? Trump likes to pull people's hand in real close, and when he did it, Trudeau pulled his hand back. He like big dicked him. I thought that was really funny. Because everybody else let him get away with it.
That's all it is. Anything else?
I like their healthcare. That's pretty cool. They don't throw people in jail for pot. That's pretty cool. They have a way less dense population.
I mean, if you're comparing
Wait,
Canada to
they
Ukraine,
care about their poor people.
Ukraine is also extremely racist.
Bring it to the U.S.
No,
Doesn't,
Canada.
like, all
Canada.
of Canada's population live like south of one line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
sure.
much.
They're
sure it's a pretty
concentrated
urbanized
into. I really like the idea that you can live in rural Canada and you're not just going to be surrounded by a bunch of people that are angry and full of hate. Whatever.
You're gonna be surrounded by nobody.
That's nice.
No, rural Canada also has this. Like, they have Trump country in Canada. I think it was Saskatchewan.
I'm just saying
thing?
that it's accessible. Like, you can get land outside of like anywhere, and you can be like 60 miles out of a big city and just have like
fucking Alaska if you want that. I don't know. Like, we got plenty of places in America you can do exactly that. There's like plenty of empty space.
It's all over the Midwest, basically.
I didn't.
Yeah.
So you're a big fan of his blackface?
Obviously, I'm a big fan of that. No. No, I'm not a fan of that. But I'm a fan of most of the things that he's done since he's been in charge of Canada. Yeah.
Okay. Straight up liberal.
I don't know.
Got it.
I'd like to disagree with you. I just don't care enough about Canada to follow any of it. So.
Fair enough. Right?
I thought you're disagreeing that I like it.
DB at least has the has the shame in him that makes him hide his deep Mexican heritage, right? Like, he doesn't bring that up
again.
Okay.
We were actually talking about this earlier. Well, I was talking about it with a bunch of people on Wix server.
Okay.
about the conquest of the indigenous people of the North Americas, and how it's a good thing actually.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes. Why was it a good thing?
I think
iPhones.
so.
I mean,
Well,
Fuck
yeah,
you.
but also like, so if you just compare the cultures, right? So like, at the time they were conquered, my ancestors were dancing around with deer heads strapped to their heads, like real deer heads strapped to the tops of their head. They would dance around, try to invoke the deer spirits, right? So they danced around like deers. They were having toad licking ceremonies. They were doing like ritual torture. So like, I don't know. Like I feel like that's not a culture that I want to be associated with. And today they do a lot of the same shit, so they haven't progressed very much.
Is our
So
torture
You know,
better if it's
you're
not ritualistic?
I think our culture is better because it's not like, I don't want to like be LARPing as like a modern day druid, you know, pretending that I can invoke the deer spirits and licking
you know
toad.
what your avatar looks like, right?
It seems a little
Well, hold on.
biased.
I want to be licked, but I don't want to lick the toad. Okay, I want to be the licky, not the licker. A whole
Oh,
different thing.
okay.
You know, you're
If
breaking my
there's a hot
submission.
indigenous girl, I'd be okay with it.
To me, that is Doobie. It's not just an avatar. I have no basis of how else to think of him.
So I don't know. I think that like, of course, it's gonna be because I grew up in this culture, right? So like, you know, if I'd grown up in the indigenous culture, maybe I'd prefer, you know, pretending that I'm invoking the deer spirits and shit. But I don't know. I think
Okay. So
as
you just
things
like
are,
suck in the teeth of like mass capitalism and the insurance
capitalism's
industry,
great.
and
Yeah, I literally
for
work in
you.
insurance. I make lots of money in insurance. Yeah,
hmm
yeah, it
You're an
works out pretty well for me.
insurance agent?
I'm an insurance. I
He's
guess
worse.
broker is like the technical title. I own an insurance company.
Yeah, he
So,
owns the insurance company. He's like literally the
Oh
biggest
my
demon.
god. I
hold on, not
feel
that
like that puts
carrier.
so
It's like a
much into
different. I'm
perspective
not
for
a.
me.
Oh, Doobie, I want to ask
Well,
you. I know it's not usually medical insurance, right? It's like
no, I fucking hate medical insurance. I don't do that. I do
Term life?
primarily like commercial insurance, like commercial property,
right.
general liability, etc. Workers' comp.
What's your opinion on the fact that a lot of medical insurance for some reason covers acupuncture?
I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews about acupuncture. Of course, you hear the people saying that
Well,
it's like
it's bullshit, but they
pseudoscience,
don't cover
whatever.
mental health though.
Yeah, I think if they're going to cover acupuncture, they should be covering, you know, therapy or medication, like mental health or medication, of course.
All right.
Like my girlfriend got acupuncture for like 2 months. Like every Monday, she'd go get acupuncture, and she said it helped her. You know, she had like this issue with she like sprained her shoulder. It wasn't me. I wasn't involved. But she like fucked up her shoulder for a while.
No, we were
And I'm just saying, I don't be my girlfriend. And yeah, it helped her apparently. You know.
I've read into it before because I was wondering if there was anything to it, and it seems like some people say it's complete nonsense, but there's like a lot of pro acupuncture literature out there.
Yeah, it's like chiropractors too,
and
right?
it's
They
all
say like,
bullshit.
that chiropractors are also bullshit, but you have people that swear by chiropractors, right? And about how much they like help them.
Yeah,
So
but the
I have
science
no
is
idea.
not there, so.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe it just hasn't caught up. It hasn't caught up yet. Okay.
Wait, you're saying that there's no science to back chiropractic?
No, I'm saying the consensus around it is not it's not like a positive, or there's not really any actual like studies that show that it proves anything outside of placebo effect generally.
I thought that it was it's legitimate, but they exaggerate the benefits that can be achieved. That was my understanding of
Well,
chiropractic.
if I remember correctly, like a lot of the pushback against chiropractors, is it chiropractic? I think it's chiropractor, right? A lot of the pushback against it comes from like the origin of it, which is like tied to like some weird Buddhist or Hindu shit where like your entire body can be controlled by your feet or some crazy shit. I can't remember.
no,
But it's
no,
like
no.
the soles of your feet or something. Or is
No,
that, or is that something else?
that's reflexology. So
Okay.
chiropractic is also criticized. So it doesn't come from that, but it does have a weird kind of pseudoscientific underpinning, which is that all disease, including cancer, HIV, all that stuff, comes from
Your spinal like
what's
alignment?
called subluxations, which
Yeah.
are imperfections in your spinal cord, and that in order to cure all disease, you need to completely align yourself, and then you'll be better. It's a little bit
Yeah.
fucking weird.
Yeah, so I think that's a lot of
Yeah.
the pushback. But I mean, it could just be that like this is a legitimate thing or somewhat legitimate thing, but because they built up like this lore, this magic around how it works, people are now like reflexively like dismissing it. You know?
I was in a chiropractic study, to see if they could alleviate ADHD symptoms by cracking your neck, and all I can say is it hurt my neck. I was like 10.
Wow.
You seen that there's animal chiropractors? They're like literally like it's
Do you guys ever like have your
bad.
back crack or anything? Like, you ever like get someone to crack your back?
Once ever, somebody cracked my back, and it hurt more than anything, and then I felt better than I did my entire life for like 20 hours.
Yeah, but you know that whole philosophical principle of the the relief from pain can be seen as pleasure.
Yeah, that was definitely what happened. I have chronic back pain.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but if there's pain relief, then like it worked, right?
Yeah, but it seemed like it was more than that.
Well,
like
no, it's just that there was more pain, and then the pain then was in your head lessened because you had more pain. That doesn't mean that the pain went away.
No,
Right.
like, you ever like crack your knuckle and it hurts to crack it, but then your knuckle feels better? It was like that times like 1,000.
No, I've literally never had that.
Oh,
This is a fascinating conversation. Before I lose what's off my audience, let's get started. Thanks all for being here. This is Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll get started. We have a friend Lactoid here. Lactoid, thank you so much for stopping by. How are you?
Doing good. I got a hole in my foot, but otherwise I'm doing good.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad that you're okay. And I hope you are on the mend and like it doesn't get like further infected or anything like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll burn your fucking loafers and wear real man shoes with the situation.
They're just so convenient, right? You can just slip them on, go outside. Don't have to tie my shoes.
Fatally injure yourself. Yeah, sure. Okay, got it.
Small price to pay.
All right. So says the man who's in danger of lockjaw. All right, well, let's move on to Casimir, who we haven't seen here in a long time. Thank you for being here, Casimir. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Glad to be here.
Okay. Streaming from a train station?
Yeah, from the Grand Central train station by
Grand
Vanderbilt.
Central.
On my way out.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think Grand Central had like a green roof. Does it have a green roof?
It's blue, green, very similar.
Okay. All right. Anyway, looking quite handsome here, so we're happy to have you. Only for your looks, nothing else. Let's go to Elder Drazzy, who is here with us. Thanks for stopping by.
I'm really happy to be back on here. It's nice to see some people that I've never met before. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. Genuinely.
Okay. Yep. Next, we have Nina. Nina, okay, look, I'm sorry. I only just noticed this about you. And it's my fault, right? For not paying attention. I'd seen the flag, but I didn't realize it was upside down. You have an upside down American flag there. What are you trying to?
No, wait, that's not upside down. That's right side
No,
up.
it's not.
It looks upside down. Look, that's the cutoff
The
point.
stars would be on the other
Stripes are right
side.
here.
It's obscured.
It's partially obscured.
It's a partial obscure. Okay.
That's just
Great.
hiding
I just
behind
got my
the-
He's not
plushies
that
in front of
leftist, okay, Prime?
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know. Good to know. I thought you were
Wow, you're gonna
another
accuse me
traitor.
of something like that? What the fuck?
I mean, I thought you were like
No, I'm
Elder
a-
Drowsy, a crypto Canadian.
I'm
So-
a socialist patriot.
okay. Fair enough. All right. Well.
Always good to be here and to see you. I missed the squad. I mean, just generally, I guess lactoid, because we have a lot of new, and I guess Doobie, there's got a lot of new faces here that I'm really excited to talk to as well. Always fun to have. I think we're gonna have some hot takes on this one, so I'm really interested to get into it.
Okay. All right. Next we have my man, Doobie, our Dark Lord and Savior. Doobie, how are you? We haven't seen you in a little bit too, as well. I was like freaking heartbroken whenever Doobie tells me that he can't make it. Like, like it ruins my Mondays. So, Doobie, thanks for being back here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. And now we have Sad Boy Fanatic. Like the colors drained from his world. Right?
Oh, wait a minute.
It's like in a fucking French film.
Let me see.
This man's going through some drama right now, apparently. So Fanatic, I'm nervous to ask you, how are you?
Listen, I'm sad and dreary, okay? As denoted by the black and white camera. Honestly, I don't know why it does this, but yeah, it's a thing.
Okay, like it just like randomly, seriously, like randomly does it? Because last time I saw you, didn't.
It's because it's if I have OBS open, I can switch this camera to a boo-boo camera. But let me see, maybe if I, you know what? I know what to do. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Give me time. But yeah. We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, it's fine. It really doesn't matter.
Y'all might have to just deal with the black and white.
Okay.
I thought it was intentional.
I mean, look. The melanin still shines no matter what, so that's all that matters.
That's facts.
So we're going to start with our second topic first. Topic 1. A viral video depicts a white female nurse in an altercation with black male teens. They are arguing about a bike that each says was rented by themselves. The initial response from the video was that the white woman was in the wrong and that she clearly was weaponizing her assumed vulnerability against the black teens. However, now there appears to be evidence that she did indeed rent the bike. That this is true. What do you think about the initial fallout of the incident? Is this social media criticism of the nurse an example of anti-white racism? Should the nurse have handled the situation differently? Or do you think that this is an isolated incident with no large implications? So yeah, white nurse outside of a hospital in New York, I believe. And they were going to get like one of those rented bikes. I'm not sure if it was electric or not, but like a rented bike. And there was a disagreement about who actually had rented that bike at that particular moment with her and these black teens. And the response from especially the left on Twitter was to come down on this woman quite hard and say all kinds of interesting things about her and her intentions. So we're wondering if that's fair. And also, does this woman, like for instance, she's pregnant? Does that matter? So I kind of want to like look at all aspects of this thing. And Fanatic, we can definitely hear you. All right, so we'll move on to our friend. And before we start, guys, if you're liking us this so far, hit that follow button. I would love to have you, and consider subscribing to the channel. All right, Lactoid, opening statement.
Yeah, so I actually have some data on this, which I think is pretty useful because of a debate I had last Wednesday, wokeness. One of the things that we talked about there was how the media had done a complete 180 since the 1990s when it comes to portraying incidents involving race. And really, we see this really start to happen post 2011, post 2012, around that time period. You see the media completely shift. I mean, use of the word racism spiked 300%. Use of the word, white supremacy, whiteness, these kind of concepts spiked 600%, over 600% in some cases, and it's just and there's a specific incidents, right? So the Covington kids, right? That's one example where race was sort of, these white kids are being disrespectful, and they didn't get all the facts, and then we had a situation where they were more or less maligned. We saw that situation when it came to Kyle Rittenhouse, right? There's some people that still believe, and they'll openly say, well, if he had shot white people, he'd be in prison, which again just demonstrates a complete ignorance of the whole situation. Um, and then we see this with this here, right? With this specific situation where people were very, I guess, apt and very on trigger happy when it came to jumping down this woman's throat. When it turns out, again, the statistical reality, or I guess the reality here is that she was not in the wrong. There also is a statistical reality underlining all of this. So it's not that we can point to specific examples like the Covington kid and Kyle Rittenhouse. But again, there's been numbers done here. The media is more likely to report murder if it's committed by a white person and the victim is a black person. The media is more likely to report wrongs if done by white people, and they're more likely to report wrongs if the victim of the wrongs are black people. I have a feeling that now that the situation here has been reversed, that this story is going to sort of fade into obscurity because it doesn't fit the narrative that people want it to fit. And I think that generally this is a good example, yet another good example of when all the details are not hammered down, we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. That's irresponsible. And there's other situations that perhaps we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions as well, including the incident on the New York subway. So I don't know. I'm curious to talk about it.
Okay, all right. I love the look on Fanatic's face. Looks like it's gonna be a great conversation. Let's go to our friend Casimir.
I think that this was there's definitely racism involved in this case, particularly because we don't actually know what happened. So everybody's prejudging this case. There is no surveillance video showing what happened in that location, and it's most likely surveilled because these are city bikes near a hospital. So all of that will probably be covered by 1 or 2 cameras. We don't know who initiated what. So we have the story from the lawyer. We have the story from the initial story that was released in the media. And we were asked to prejudge. And I think we should talk about this prejudgment. That is the focus. So I do believe that there's racism involved here because of the way she was addressed. So she wasn't addressed by her primary characteristics, which is a pregnant mother, a respectable, medical professional, a physician's assistant, or a nurse, if you want to shorten it. She wasn't identified by those identifiers. No, she was called a white Karen, which are both racial and also racist terms. They specifically focused on her identity and on the least significant parts of her identity, which is not her occupation, the things that she basically couldn't choose. And then they proceeded to destroy her, primarily because of the people she allegedly endangered, which is also like a ridiculous proposition that in New York City, in one of the most tightly controlled and regulated cities in the world, with the most equitable police force in the world, most likely, and definitely in the United States, with the least amount of police violence in probably the United States as well, that these people were in danger because she asked for help. Well, she asked specifically for help of other passerbys, not necessarily the police. So I think this particular reaction is what we should focus on. And I don't think it's healthy. And I do think that this woman, the problem is with the activists in New York City, they're hopeless. And her only means of affecting them is to just move out. New York City should lose an excellent nurse. New York City should lose an excellent mother. Her entire family should move out of this city because this city is too insane for her to live here.
Thank you so much, Casimir. Oh man, you're a bundle of fun. I always forget that. Let's go to Older Drazzy.
So I've basically looked at this entire situation devoid of race because there's nothing implicitly racist that had happened here. It's really easy to frame it, but I don't know this. That all of the really super strong claims to sort of determine like what did or didn't happen in it really aren't available. She said that the guy put his hand on her stomach. We have no evidence of that. Her lawyer says that she has proof that she rented the bike. There's no proof of that. It could be impossible that there was an error and they both had it rented. But I think that we see two people that are pretty unwilling to compromise over what they think is right. And while that's a little bit of a bummer, I think that it got escalated way out of control. And to me, this is sort of a symptom of a society where nobody's really able to just like let go of anything. Nobody's able to say, okay, and like cede any ground to anyone for any reason. If the guy did have the bike and she didn't, as like it was initially reported, I think that it was fine that she got another bike. She did get another bike. She could walk to another bike. If you can bike, you can walk to another bike. If it's the other way around, or if they both had the bike, I think they could have both just pulled out their phones and just sort of showed each other. And it's kind of amazing that like there wasn't this super obvious conflict resolution. And now we have people making crazy claims about racism, apparently on both sides. I just heard the one side. When it just, it's kind of nuts. I think that's the best thing that, I don't know if it was Lactoid or Prime that pointed out that there is, or no, actually it was Kaz. I don't know who pointed out, but there's a strong force that just wants us to decide who is right or wrong here, and we know literally almost nothing about it, and people are like way too invested in this conflict where we're at with it.
If it's an insightful point, then I probably made it. Okay, let's go to Nina.
All right, fair. So again, it's still a developing story. There is a receipt apparently that showed her have that checkout of that exact code number. So she did have the bike for like a minute. But I do agree that this really could have been easily solved if they just didn't have the animosity to begin with, where they're like, okay, well maybe the app fucked up, like whatever. But you know, shit happens. I get it. What I think that is still the case, where I thought it was really funny, and I want to address this later, where the word white and the word Karen are apparently racist. To call a white woman a Karen, like that's so fucking stupid that I don't even know where to start with that, but I would love to talk about it more later. But like if I'm gonna get called a Karen, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're being racist, you know? Like get out of here with that shit, dude. Anyways, going back to like, I absolutely agree where this could have been solved and a lot of like cooler heads would prevail if we just like pulled out the phones. We're like, okay, what happened? Probably was just a misunderstanding that got way blown out of proportion. However, I will say she acted like a fucking psycho. Like, let's be real. Like her behavior, and if you remember at the end of the video, what she does do is she just gets another bike. And then she goes on her way. So that could have been completely avoided. Obviously, it doesn't mean like, oh, like one, like she has to like anytime like somebody's gonna disagree with her, she has to do that. But it just seems like to kind of get to that level, it seems a little unhinged. But I also do understand that I believe she was a nurse working like a 12-hour shift. She's 6 months pregnant. Hormones might be going crazy, whatever. It's probably not her finest moment, but I just think it is just I don't think at all it should be blown into the proportion that it has been blown into. I think that's really crazy, and I think it's not. Oh my god, my mom's calling me. She's gonna get mad at me now. Sorry, it's getting a phone call. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that, and then I'm gonna probably have to call my mom.
Yeah,
back.
sure, no problem. All right, let's go to our friend DB.
I agree with everything Lactoid said, and in addition, I think that it's interesting to me that the only like racial thing about this was that they're like they have different races, right? The people involved are like different races. No racial slurs were tossed either way. There's nothing about this to indicate that anything about this was racist. But it's interesting to me that the media took it and tried to make a racial incident of it, right? Tried very hard to do this to the point where they, some of them doxed her and her husband. And like NBC went to her building and were knocking on her door. They went to go talk to her neighbors and show them the video with the framing that, yeah, she was trying to take this bike from these young black kids or whatever. Like, that's really disgusting. But I think what's interesting to me about this is the way that these media organizations, I think, are intentionally like pushing this racial divide thing, right? And I wonder if there's a way to hold them accountable for that.
Thank you so much. You know, I was thinking of my friend Doobie when I was writing this question specifically, because I feel like I know how this conversation is going to go from past experiences. Let's go to our friend Fanatic.
Wow. Yeah. Listen. Okay. You guys aren't going to believe this, but I am reformed. Okay. So I'm going to try my best not to yell or scream or do any of those things. I simply ask, please don't talk when I'm talking. And I'll do the same for you. If I start talking, shut up while I talk, because I'm going to shut up while you talk, okay? That's all I'm asking. Now, a bunch of people have been, the takes so far have been completely insane, but we'll get into those when we get, to the actual conversation. But for now, what I'll just say is I think that this story highlights what I think are like known things in the media, not just in the media, known things in our culture. And that is that white women tend to frequently weaponize their victimhood at the expense of black people. We've seen these things happen time and time again. I'm not going to get into all of the stats that justify the fact that the NYPD is insanely dangerous and why black people would be incredibly terrified at the notion that they would be called on behalf of a white woman, right? We're not going to get into that stuff yet, right? I think, the idea that the lawyer came forward and made the statement, like showing that they had a receipt. And yeah, NBC reported that, but they didn't report how long that she had the bike for or the full narrative. The lawyer is intentionally being deceptive, as lawyers are known to do. So we can go ahead and get into that information, but it's just everything that has been said pretty much has been wild, except for Nina. She's a winner.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into it.
Wait, what did I say that was wild? I was mild as fuck. I think I was like the chillest.
Oh, maybe you too. Maybe you too. All right. So look, first off, listen.
Okay.
Let's just get into the notion, right? Like the notion that the NYPD is incredibly safe and the safest department is absolutely wild. And I don't think that you said
Right.
that and you were being honest as you were saying that. But let's just go ahead and look into the numbers, okay? In 2022, like by mid-June, New York was already the NYPD was already on track to surpass their total amount of settlements they had paid for civil lawsuits and civil misconduct up to that point. By that point, it is one of the highest in the country.
good.
So in the year 2021, the department paid a total of $206.7 million overall in civil lawsuits because of its civil misconduct. That's only the
very
cases
good.
that won. So to use
That's
that
a positive.
information to say that in some sort of way that they are actually a safe department, when we know how frequently that they are violating violating people's rights to the tune of $206 million, I think that's an excellent metric for any sane person. If you disagree, that's fine. I'll let you be insane. Now, the other thing was, you mentioned the idea, the thing that the lawyer left out.
Let's tackle them one at a time.
Oh,
so you don't have
let
to
him
go
finish.
I promise you, it's just one more thing. I just wanted to
right? You're just gonna tackle assertions.
Whoa,
Sure.
Kashmir, you will have your chance. I promise you. You're going to them right next, okay?
Yeah.
So
You see, I took notes. There are 7 people in this panel, and all the people gave their take first, and I took notes so that I could address them. So just wait and take notes if you need to. We can go back and forth. The other thing was, someone mentioned something about the lawyer's details. So what actually happened was, and this is the true narrative, is the woman did actually rent the bike out. She did, and she has a receipt for it. But that bike was only rented out for 1 minute. So it sounds reasonable to assume at this point, because the bike wasn't locked in place as they were arguing over it, it seems like she had rented the bike out, and after she rented the bike out, it got checked back in, probably because she stepped away from the bike. And while it was locked back in, the young black man then went and rented the bike out himself. And now that the bike was no longer in her possession and it was on his account, she began saying, wait a minute, this is my bike. To which he replied multiple times, as we saw in the video, no, it's on my account. No, you do not have to interrupt. No, you don't have to interrupt me. You'll
You're
wait.
weaving a bogus
It's
narrative.
okay. I don't care.
Kaz,
You'll
you will
wait.
Get your chance. You
Absolutely.
are next.
Thank you. I got
Kaz,
you. Sure.
knock it off,
Can you shut your mouth, please, while I finish my thing? Thank you. So anyway, so now, I'm sorry, I don't want everyone to get lost. Let me just start over really quickly, just on this one little part. So she did rent the bike out, and the bike was rented out, and then apparently she probably stepped away from the bike because the bike was locked back in for 1 minute. Her receipt only lasted for 1 minute. After that 1 minute, we now get to a video where we see the two of them arguing on a bike that's not locked in place. If the bike was not locked in place, that means somebody had to check the bike out. The person who checked the bike out is likely the young black man who can be heard saying in the video multiple times, hey, it's on my account, over and over and over again. So they're arguing over this bike that is on her, or that he's saying is on my account. Now, in order for the bike to be on his account, that means it can't be locked in place anymore, and that's the only way that that could have happened. And if it wasn't on his account and it was still on hers, then that means that then of course then the video would have lasted. The video would have had to have been shorter than a minute, because as we saw, the receipt said, according to New York Post, I know you're just fuming. The receipt said, according to New York Post, that it only I got you. The receipt said, according to New York Post, that her initial checkout of that single bike was for 1 minute. The video was longer than 1 minute, which means then that the bike had to have been locked in place prior to the recording of that video. Furthermore, if the bike, you got to stop interrupting, buddy. You just got to do it, okay? Furthermore, if the bike was checked out at the point when they're arguing, and then that means that it had to have been on someone's account, and we know it wasn't hers, because the lawyer provided 2 receipts, in case you didn't know. 2 receipts. One for the initial bike that she checked out, a second receipt for the actual bike that she went ahead and took home. So then that means then he would need 3 receipts. If it was 1 receipt for the bike before, a second receipt for the bike like once the video happened, and then a 3rd receipt, which indicates logically and necessarily for anyone with a working brain, and I understand that not all of us have that, that means that then that young man had to have rented out that bike at that point. So simply saying she has a receipt for having checked out the bike does not dismiss all of the claims that he made. Lastly, and I'll rest here, the idea that there's not a racial component to this story is laughable. We all understand who racist Central Park Cooper was, who literally called the police on that man and said, I'm going to tell them that a black man is attacking me, and immediately got on the phone and said she was in danger, right? Now, she did that understanding the ramifications and the potential harm that she could have caused to that man. She did that on purpose, and I think that we can still understand that this woman faking and weaponizing her tears and pretending to cry, using all of these appeals to nonsense, you're hurting my fetus, all of that nonsense was ridiculous, and we understand that the danger she could have put those young black men in with this absolutely corrupt police department that's paying out over $206 million in settlements. I think there is justified cause for concern for those young black men, and I'm glad that they stood up to her and that we're not giving into the racism. Shout outs to Carolyn Bryant.
Okay. Let's go to Casimir, like I said.
Yeah,
and then Lacto.
He was allowed to filibuster about 3 separate points, and he was lying like really hard about all of them.
Oh, then correct him.
Loading it up and
address him.
you as the audience. And so let's go about the lies one by one. So first of all, if some police department has a record of payouts, that just means that they're actually being investigated. Now, let me remind you that the stop and frisk was ended close to a decade ago, perhaps more. The New York City is
how long is this gonna
on the
take?
2nd or 3rd term of their most liberal and progressive mayor to date, maybe even 4th. So I think he was 2 terms, and now there's Adams.
It seems like you don't really know, so why don't we move it on a little
They
faster?
have one of the most progressive prosecutors to date, and the most soft on crime prosecutors, hard on police prosecutors to date.
So that's probably why they're paying out so much.
This is not year 1 of
Casimir.
equity. This is year like 8 of equity, if not year 12 of equity in the city. So by that time, now the millions in settlements would be, we don't know what it would be in any other police department, because they get less investigated about their issues, and they're also smaller, so we don't know what that means per capita. We don't know how it
Why are you
compares
relating
to
it?
other cities. So it's a completely meaningless statistic. New York City is one of the top populated cities in the world, with one of the largest police presences in the world. So, and specifically in that area of the city, with the way people were behaving, particularly there, I think that they would be getting the most top quality service. These are not police officers that are going out into some dangerous neighborhood in New York City where they're ready for a fight. This is them separating 2 office clerks, more or less. And by the way that those people behaved, they behaved fairly civilly, even though they had a fight. So I don't expect a police overreaction in that moment like you do. In terms of I don't think that the case itself has a significant racial component. The reaction to it has a racial component. The term Karen is a racist term, as admitted by Wikipedia and most other people.
No, it's a pejorative. That doesn't mean it's racist.
To white women.
Pejorative doesn't mean it's racist.
Okay, let's go to Casimir. Go ahead.
So everything. Let's talk about the specific case. Everything he loaded about this case, we should start by saying we don't know, because there was no court. This man would have convicted and probably pre-convicted, if you go back at some of his old videos, Rittenhouse. We didn't know that Rittenhouse was innocent until we watched like 3 or 4 videos multiple times. I started out thinking that he was guilty of just shooting a person who didn't threaten him, and then I had to watch like multiple videos until I realized what actually happened. It was very difficult to ascertain initially, so you shouldn't prejudge. And then he brings in a third case. So one specific detail that he omitted, according to this woman, and again, this is not confirmed, she was pushed and her bike was forcibly locked. And that caused her, that physical contact caused her to behave in a very irrational manner. Now, many of you here and probably in the audience never got assaulted, never got physically accosted. And if you haven't, you don't know how you will react. That woman lives in a safety bubble in one of the safest places in New York City. And that was her reaction. It wasn't the best reaction, possibly. But for somebody unused to being accosted, I think it was fairly standard reaction for a woman, right? Women are, especially pregnant women, have a lot to fear. Any mild physical contact, she can lose her child. On video, we see them touch in the area, or like the hand of the person is in the area close to her body, very close to her stomach. But again, I don't know whether she was pushed in because nobody really knows. So when she says, when Fanatic says that this is clearly the case, we don't know. Now the Karen, quote unquote, the woman that called police on the black man and threatened him. Yes, the statement part, the dog walker situation. She was clearly in the wrong partially. However, what was omitted from all reports was that he threatened her and admitted to threatening her. He threatened to lure over her dog and take her dog away, and he basically threatened with interfering with her life directly. So she had a good reason to actually fear for her life, not for any racist reasons, but for the reasons of a person saying, "I'm going to like take your dog away from you." And also, she's in Central Park, where in New York City, where normally people don't interact with each other. People normally like go their separate ways. She's in a park alone, so maybe she overreacted. But to claim that it's the similar case, to bring this up and not bring up that type of nuance, it's ridiculous. So I don't think this was right.
I think you're struggling with this story worse than you are with the English language. First off, she didn't live in a safety bubble in one of the safest places in New York. She lived in freaking Brooklyn. What the freak are you talking about? You must not know New York very well, buddy. Secondly, the idea that he threatened to take her dog, that didn't happen. What he threatened to do was to give the dog treats. He literally flicked some treats onto the ground because she wasn't supposed to have dogs there and it was a bird watching area. This is what is known, sir. So you should probably follow that. Lastly, a progressive prosecutor and a progressive mayor doesn't eradicate the racism from a police department. We've seen this through God knows how many different consent decrees. Do you remember the Ramparts division in the state of California? I live in the state of California. So the idea that California has been progressive literally ever since the Rodney King riots. I got you holding up those 10 fat fingers. Listen to this. Ever since the Rodney King riot, so you got to recognize California has been irrevocably blue since then and has been irrevocably progressive. Yet that didn't fix the Ramparts division such that they had to eventually be torn down. We still have incredible racism within the Los Angeles Police Department. This is now, I mean, you got to think, if that was a 96, right? That was 96 when those riots happened, or 92, excuse me, when those riots happened. And here we are now, literally in 2022. I don't know, bro. It seems like 30 years later, and all that progressivism still didn't like get rid of all of the racism within that department. That's why we have FBI reports detailing that there are gangs associated with the Los Angeles Police Department in which they are incredibly racist still to this day. Not to mention the FBI literally saying we still have a problem of white supremacy infiltrating our police departments. They said that a decade ago, and it still has been an ongoing problem, as has infiltrated also the New York Police Department. So the idea that just because this is a simple problem with two people arguing that there would be no violence only speaks to your ignorance and about this country, which you probably have never lived in. Because we've seen how many different situations with security guards or other people who are literally unarmed, and all these various situations of young black men unarmed doing innocent things that are literally being killed in the streets. Now, I'm not saying this is a super duper common occurrence, but the fact that it does happen is enough to alarm young black men. You've just been wrong about everything, buddy.
Wait, hold on,
Well,
one second.
I'm a New Yorker,
Fanatic,
by the way.
wait 1 sec, please stop. So you massively misrepresented the Rampart scandal. That had nothing to do with white supremacy. Multiple people involved in that, the ringleaders of that, were black and brown people in the LAPD. How the fuck can you compare? How the fuck can you connect that to white supremacy? These are police officers.
You're
Talking
insane.
about
These are police officers
corruption,
acting
dude.
as gang members. You can fucking Google it right now. You'll see that the ringleaders were black and brown people within the police department.
It
who are
doesn't
now in
matter. He's
prison.
talking about
I got you.
corruption.
Okay, so don't try to connect this to white racism or whatever the fuck. And in your claim earlier that the police in New York City might be like racist or whatever, they might hurt these black kids. Or I don't want to like calling them kids because they look like late teens or young adults. Okay, like let's be honest. If she calls the police, well, if they're in the process of robbing her, are you saying that if a black person is committing a crime and a white person calls the cops on them, that's racist because the cops might overreact or something?
No,
That's
no
fucking
cops
ridiculous.
are called, by the way. Just
Stop.
So we
I'm
know
not
the
talking to you
actual
right now.
facts.
I'm talking to Fanatic.
That's
So
Okay,
not
that
what
was
I
the
said.
implication. That was the
my guy.
implication of what you said. So
Nope.
so her
You
her
misinterpreted.
making a scene and trying to get the police involved is actually a type of racism because this is dangerous to them. This is like a threat to their life because the police might overreact. That's effectively what you said. And again, from her perspective, from everything that we know, they were in the process of robbing her. Because if she hadn't been allowed to put that bike back in, which is what she was trying to do, and move to the other bike, right? The charge for that on her account would have been like $1,200 for a lost bike. Right,
But her
there's
receipt
a please
proves-
stop. There's okay. Again,
No, but her
what we have
receipt
right
proved.
now.
No, I can't let
What
you
we
get.
have right now.
I can't let you get
What we
away with
have right
that,
now.
though.
What we have right
Her
now
receipt proved
is
that she
her.
would not
Please
have been
stop.
liable.
No, not true.
sorry.
Not true. Actually,
Yes.
no, not true.
Okay, so why is it only mentioned for a minute?
Again, so if this is true, right? Why do you
Which
think
it
it is that
is.
the other
She's
guy?
the one who
No, stop.
provided the
The
receipt.
other black guy who's
let
here,
Jimmy
the
go,
other
let
black guy
Jimmy
who's
go.
on the right side, even told his friend like, "Hey, why don't you just put it back in, and we'll just check it out again or check out another bike." And he didn't want
No, that
to.
was
Right. So
that
right
was
now,
for the-
all we have is that she checked it out on her account, right? And
Permit.
her story is she checked it out and he forced it back in and tried to take it from her.
Okay, so
unless-
then it
unless
wouldn't have
we
been
have
on her
receipts to
account.
prove
Then it wouldn't have been
otherwise,
in her account.
Why the fuck would he come up with narratives where he actually she put it back in or she walked away or something and then he rented out the same bike afterwards? We have nothing to indicate that at all.
Yes, we
so
do.
I-
We
I-
have
I-
her
I-
receipt.
So what I want to do is like I'm gonna let Fnatic respond to that. Then I'm gonna go to Lactoid and then Nina and anyone else wants to go after that.
First off, we obviously know within the, not just in the Rampart division, I was talking specifically about LAPD, which there was known racism, obviously, as was witnessed and evidenced by the fact that Rodney King was absolutely assaulted on air. We saw it. There was literally advertised because of the fact that it happened to be at a gas station and they beat the brakes off that man and he was literally dang near in critical condition. So we know that there was
Clear, that
racism
was like
within
30
that
years
department.
ago,
Hold on,
right?
I got you. Yes, it
was
was
like
30 years
ago,
ago.
right?
Wait,
Oh.
hold on. Don't
So
start
30 years
interrupting.
ago, this thing happened to Rodney King. Therefore, this lady on the other side of the fucking
Prime, please
country
step
can't
in.
call the
Prime,
cops
can
on
you
these
please
guys,
step
Rob.
in here?
Doobie,
Can you please step in here?
Okay.
Prime,
It's fucking
Dude,
ridiculous.
thank you.
I got
Thank
you.
you.
Doobie.
Just mute him. It's that simple.
Can you acknowledge
Just
that this
mute
from the
him.
other side of the
Don't-
fucking
wait,
country?
can you mute him, please?
Fine.
I'm in the middle of talking my point and I'm going to lose my point. Like, can we please mute him? We don't got to do that, Doobie. You said a bunch of nonsense and I shut up while you spoke. So can you please shut the hell up while I speak? Thank you. So anyway, so the point that I'm making is, obviously, yes, I did mention that it was 30 years ago. And I mentioned the fact that it was 30 years ago in order to detail the fact that in all of that time, the amount of progressive mayors and progressive governors and this irrevocably progressive state still hasn't eradicated all of the racism out of these departments, particularly within the Los Angeles Police Department. And yes, you can say brown people, but we're talking about them white Hispanics, and we know what that means. So the fact is, there still is like pervasive racism within that department, such that their consent decree didn't actually accomplish its goals till eventually they just let it fall, right? So we know that there's still racism within these departments, number one. The other thing, you mentioned the fact that what's it called? We don't know, like, that there's no reason for them to be afraid or whatever. She was afraid because her bike was pushed in, right? We don't have any evidence that her bike was pushed in. But here's the funny thing right here. Here's the beautiful thing. If the bike was pushed in, then that means it wouldn't have been registered into her account anymore. So all of the lies about, oh, she was going to lose $1,200, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's just false because the bike had already been checked in, apparently. But the young black man had then checked the bike out afterwards. And so then that means that $1,200 would have came out of his account. That's why he said it's my bike. It's on my account, which is why the white Kevin, who was trying to help the white Karen who was weaponizing her tears, said, hey, why don't you guys go ahead and put the bike back in? Why don't you guys reset the bike, etc. So that's number one. I mean, that's one of the other points. And then I know it is laughable. The other
It's
thing that you
laughable.
said,
If
I
the
got you.
bike
Yeah,
was-
yeah. No.
if the bike-
Prime, do I gotta
Why
mute
don't
him? Do I gotta mute him? Do I gotta mute him?
you. Fine, just go ahead.
Thank you.
I gotta
Shut.
let Doobie respond to that, then lag to it, then Nina.
Thank
Okay, go
you.
ahead.
Shut the hell up while I'm talking. So now the next point was you were talking about the idea that the word Karen is racist. Now, it would be racist, again, we had this conversation about the C word. It would be racist if it was essentialized. If it was just simply the state of being white immediately made you a Karen, then yeah, we would be able to call that racist. But the fact is, it's not tied necessarily, it's constrained to the race, but it's not essentialized. Karen is associated with specific behaviors and specific attitude and specific attributes. That's why we've seen people call Latin people Karen. We've seen them call black people Karen, right? It's not about just the fact that it's not about the race of the individual. It's about the actions. That's why we know that it's not essentialized. So it isn't racist. While sure, originally I would easily give you, it did seem like it was pretty racially constrained, still doesn't make it racist. Now
Okay,
you can
so
speak.
So I'm gonna go to Doobie, but once Doobie is done, I can't let Fnatic respond. I gotta go to Lactuit. I gotta go to Nina. Okay, all right. So that's the way it's gonna be. And then if Casimir or Elder Drowsy wants to jump in afterwards, that's fine too. All right. So
Ew.
I'm gonna unmute you, Doobie, and
Hi.
please go ahead.
So just really quickly. So I think if we're going to have this thing where people who overtalk Fnatic are muted, he needs to restrain himself to one lie at a time, because he like shotguns out 4 different lies, and then we can't fucking we need to go through like a whole fucking like essay to respond to every single one of them, right? So if that's going to be the case, I'm fine with it. One lie at a time, please. So far as I know, and Prem, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any information at all from the guy involved, the one that was holding onto the bike, to show like a receipt or any kind of indication that he got this bike out at all, other than
As far
his
as I
word.
know.
Yeah, so I don't understand why we would assume that he actually did check it out, that he had it on his account ever. Right? So saying, oh, well, he actually checked it out afterwards, or she put it back in on her own, and he checked it out afterwards, and that's why he was saying it was on his account. We have nothing to show that that's true. And given that we understand that he was saying that she never checked it out in the first place, and we know that that's not true, it seems like he's lied at least once, right? Or unintentionally or intentionally. So it seems like the issue here is we should give her the benefit of the doubt here, and not him. And what she's saying is that she checked it out, and he pushed it back in and tried to take it from her. Right. So until he comes forward with a receipt or a statement or anything, right? I think we need to accept her story, like on good faith.
But she just uses another bike.
Okay. Why couldn't? Okay, Nina, if that's the case, why couldn't he use another bike? Why couldn't he just like cancel the fucking
because
thing and walk to the bike like
it
the
was
guy
already on his account.
the guy standing right next to him said?
Because he didn't want to give in to a racist Karen, because the idea that because of the fact that you're going to weaponize your
Well, more than
tears,
anything,
that
if
you
it
think
was
that you have that
on-
sort of entitlement is absolutely absurd. And I applaud those young black men for recognizing that this woman is not superior to them. She does not have any entitlement to the bike. I think it's time that they start checking that entitlement. And the fact of the matter was, if the bike was on his account, he was entitled to it, and she could just go ahead and get another bike, which is what she was required to do, and
Yeah,
what she
I think what
eventually
actually
did.
happened
Shout
here-
outs to young Daquan.
I think what actually happened here is this
Doobie,
man and other people in the media and on this panel weaponize their blackness against
No.
white people constantly.
Yeah, I'm weaponizing my
right?
blackness.
Constantly. And so I'm
Doobie, honestly,
glad we have yet another example of this happening, of the media latching onto it because I want to push the race divide, of people like Fnatic and like the people in the Young Turks and like NBC News going around spreading this bullshit and then proven to be full of shit. Because
Okay,
again,
so
we have
I'm
it
asking
here.
you, Doobie, I want to ask you.
Is anti-white racism, Prem? That's what I think is happening right here.
1 second, we do weaponize
no,
specifically
we
against black lives.
We can't. Oh God. Okay. It's got to be Lacto. Lacto has been waiting so patiently.
All right, go ahead,
Please,
Lacto.
Lacto. And then
I do want to
Nina,
ask
you are
Doobie. Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yes,
I got a lot of points. I'm just going to try to shotgun them out. They're all
Sure.
true, though. Don't worry. So quickly, I'm going to address the civil lawsuit portion. Just because certain amounts of money are used to settle civil lawsuits doesn't necessarily mean liability. There's a lot of things that go into determining whether or not a settlement is going to take place, or the amount of that settlement, including jury pools, right? Simply the perception, even if untrue, of racial prejudice among an area.
I just want to say that Fnatic was
that
pretty dishonest here by saying he knows what's what and he knows why. He can't know some of that stuff.
Where the venue is determines a tremendous amount of how much that lawsuit's actually worth. Because, again, perception matters more than reality, unfortunately. That's the first thing. Second thing.
Before you go to the second thing,
I'm going to shotgun.
Let him go.
I'm going to do what Fnatic did. I think it's only
Fair
fair.
enough.
So I want to point out when people are saying that minimizing her, I guess, experience when it comes to this. My understanding is that she was put on leave from work, and in fact, she's been forced to hire a lawyer over a dispute over a bicycle. Okay, so she's had to hire a lawyer, and she's been put on leave from work because of a non-violent, non-racist spat that she had over a bicycle. I want you to think a little bit about what does that say about how people are perceiving this as opposed to what the gravity of this actually is. As far as we know, we've already talked about it. There is no receipts that the other young gentleman put forward showing that he did get the bicycle. The receipts being produced so far by her lawyer that she had to hire show pretty, I guess, fairly convincingly that she had possession of the bike, or that she just had possession of the bike, or at the very least, there were lies being stated by the young gentleman in that video. It appears to back her story the most right now. But here's the big difference, right? I'm not even saying that we should put this young man from leave on his job, or that we should force him to hire an attorney. We should be reasonable and say, well, we don't know who's at fault, so let's stop freaking the fuck out, knee-jerk reacting and attacking this woman, especially now when it seems the majority of the evidence shows that she is not at fault. However, and I think this speaks to the broader question that I think we're really here to talk about, which is that the media racializes this. This story, like Doobie said, the story had nothing to do with their race at all. But the media made it about race, right? The stats consistently show white people killing people is overpropagated, and black people killing people is underpropagated. Black victims are very much overpropagated, especially when it comes to police. Fanatic was talking about how dangerous the NYPD was, and then he went to LAPD, and I talked a lot about police generally speaking. Now, I'm not going to deny that there are people that are killed by the police, but again, when we're talking about how the media overblows things or distorts things or spreads misinformation, I think one of the best ways we can look at this is look at what people actually believe who watch the media. So the studies, about over half of people who report very liberal, 53.5%, believe that over 1,000 or more unarmed black men are killed every year. Specifically, this was taken in 2019. The real number, 13 to 27, depending on how you measure unarmed. So we're talking multiple orders of magnitude difference. Again, one more example of how the media takes something and overblows it, hyper focuses on it, and then you have people walking away with a misunderstanding of events. My question, Fanatic, what about this story, now that we know more information, what about this story is actually racial? What does she do that's racist? And are you willing to say, well, shit, it doesn't look like we have anything to go off of that she's racist. Maybe she should have been put on leave from work. Maybe she shouldn't have had to hire an attorney.
I can answer your question. I'll tell you why it seems racist. It's because of the fact that she was screaming at the top of her lungs, "Help me." When she was screaming that, and when she started fake crying to that to the other old white guy, young Kevin over there who was going to come to her aid, I would say that she understood the dangers in weaponizing her tears in that way, as white women have been known to do. So that's why I would say there's a racial component there. I don't believe she would have responded the same way if these were young white men that were dealing with her, and so that's why I feel that way. Then you mentioned that the settlement doesn't mean liability. And sure, a settlement doesn't necessarily mean liability, but if you felt that you hadn't done anything, you wouldn't be settling to the tune of $206 million on that many different cases. We've known about these things. There have been goodness how many pattern and practice investigations into police departments that have clearly detailed the ongoing racism as well as the other various studies. So I think that part's also ridiculous. You said that she hired a lawyer because of all the bad media. No, she hired a lawyer because she got caught on camera doing a racism, and the media and everyone else appropriately responded, and she was about to lose her job. That's why she hired a lawyer. Next time, don't try to weaponize your Karen tears. Then you mentioning, she had a receipt, so that means that guy must have lied. No, it doesn't mean that he lied. What he said was the bike was on his account. So just simply saying that she had the bike for 1 minute does not mean that the bike couldn't have then been on her account. These two stories are not necessarily contradictory. If she had the bike and then checked the bike in, and then now he has the bike on his account, then that means now, yes, she did. That receipt shows that she did at some point have the bike. It doesn't mean that she had the bike at the time of the recording. Dude, you're a lawyer. I know you can logically follow that. Don't make me disappointed in you, okay? Lastly, the idea that black victims are overpropagated in the media sounds absolutely ridiculous. We obviously know how racist our system is. First off, we just recently got off of the heels of the Stop Asian Hate movement, where black people were repeatedly being called the perpetrators of these crimes, and we know that the vast majority of those things came from white folks. In fact, we know that literally 100% of all domestic terrorism within this country over the last 3 years, 100% have been done by white men. So the idea that
Weston,
like
one
you
lie at a
guys are
time,
getting,
please. That's how this
I
is
know, I
bullshit.
got you. Hey, I get you. When you can address the lies if you want to call them that.
I mean, do you consider going to a
You
synagogue
can
and having
address.
a
You can
having
address.
a
You
person
can
to be
address.
terrorism?
You
So
can
black guy
address.
did that.
You
Black
can
guy did that in New
address.
York like 2 years
Brian,
ago.
please mute
It'll
him.
be-
What are
it'll
you
be-
talking
it'll
about?
be-
I haven't
it'll be-
interrupted a single time. Can
it'll
you please
be-
mute him?
I asked you for one
Thank
lie
you.
at a time.
It's
One lie
okay.
at a
No,
time.
Ruby,
here's what
chill.
you got asked. You asked it, and I'm denying it. I will speak.
Well, then
at
I'm
my,
just gonna
I
talk
will
over
speak,
you when you
then
have
I'm
your
just going to
lie.
mute
Okay.
you.
So,
Then I'm
you
just
Oh
going to
my
mute
God,
you.
guys,
And we're
no,
talking
the
over
guy
each
who
other.
went
I'm
to
about
the
to
Jewish
put
synagogue
Brian
in New York
and
City,
him.
guys,
Oh, you're
established
saying
that whole
guys.
test
guys.
was a black guy
All
murdered
right.
those
Oh my
Jewish
God.
people.
All right, there we go. Now I muted him. So at least
He's
my
a
stream
racist.
won't hear him.
Right?
I'm
And he's
sorry
a
if your
terrorist.
audience can't. So
And he was
look,
black.
at the end
You
of the
acknowledge
day,
that.
what we do know is that, again, if she got caught doing a racism, then it does
course
make
you
all
can
of the sense why that would happen. I forgot the train of thought that I was going on because he rudely interrupted me. So I'm going to try to pick it back up. Let me look at my notes. Oh,
Take
yes.
some notes.
The black victims, I did take notes. That's why I'm looking at them right now. And it put me right back on
Quick
track.
reminder that
Stop
90%
interrupting
of the
me. Though. Shut
robberies
the
in New
hell
York
up.
City and
So
any
the
given
other
year are
thing that
committed
we
by
saw
black
was
and
that
brown
black
people, by the way.
victims are overpropagated in the media. And the one thing that I was pointing out was specifically when it came to the Stop Asian Hate movement, we obviously understand that the vast majority of perpetrators of hate crimes are white people. Asians make up literally about 1 out of 20 victims of hate crimes in comparison to black people, and that so we know that that's not true. What we do know, though, someone linked me to study that LA that they're still investigating 50-year-old police gangs, and that they found even as late as 2021 that 18 of those groups have been identified, and that they were banditos, jump out boys, executioners, grim reapers, and that there have been studies done by the FBI. There
You
have been
missed all the
federal court
Crip-
decisions,
Blood and Crip
independent
gangs in there.
investigation, and governmental analysis that have all determined that these gangs are still
Yeah, the
repeated throughout
LAPD is full of blood and
so
Crip
we don't
members
have to
too.
go ahead and speculate there. We
Those are
know
black
this.
guys.
This is what the point of these investigations are. I'm going to go ahead and link you guys the studies so you guys can see it. What we can say is that domestic terrorist events have been perpetuated by white folks, just like the vast majority of these school shootings. I'm not talking about the type of school shootings where we're talking about, like, you know, somebody gets in an altercation, where somebody gets in an altercation. We're talking about the kind where they go up there with that white rage and just air that whole mug out. That's what we're talking about, and that's white folks. I'm just being honest with you.
Okay, so let's
Wait, so
go
Prem,
to
can I-
Lactoid.
I want to address a couple things and then I'll kick it over to Doobie.
And then we got to get to Nina. Nina's going to talk to you on your way, and then you can take it where you want. Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, the first thing, you're just wrong about civil lawsuits. Like I told you, there's a plenty of things that go into determining what is settlement in civil lawsuits. A whole bunch of that is perception. Even if you the facts 100% on your side, if you know that there is a general perception of racism that the jury might hold, and then you have an attorney's counsel or a plaintiff's counsel who may be able to pound on the desk loud enough and seem sympathetic enough, you can absolutely risk tremendously high verdicts. And so that's a huge element of why settlements exist. First of all, so again, we can't read into, oh, they fucking knew they were doing something wrong, or that the rise is associated with actual misconduct. We don't know that. It's irresponsible to say that. Second
What
of all,
metric would you use, Lactoid?
not bad. I mean, I don't.
What would you?
I'll have to think about what are the actual like metrics that we go into to determine whether or not a police department's being racist. But that's the worst metric so far. So the fact that you're using that is just not a. It's not a solid.
I'm expecting
metric.
you to come up with another one. Love you.
I'll think about it. Okay. The second thing, domestic terrorism is committed by white people. I mean, you think you said 100%. I think that's, first of all, that's absolutely insane. Pulse nightclub shooting. And then on top of that, when you brought up before, I think you said this bullshit stat before, and I linked you, like, again, Mother Jones did a full analysis of mass shooters. Now, you might say, well, mass shooting is different than domestic terrorism. We can parse words about what domestic terrorism means, but mass shooting in terms of random mass shootings, not like they had a spat and then all of a sudden there was a shooting, but random unprovoked mass shootings. No, this is not the case that it's only 100% white people. In fact, black people are overrepresented. And we can go through all that data too, if you'd like to. Second of all,
Let's hit school shootings.
Okay, maybe if this school shooting specifically happens in the school, but if it happens in public or the workplace, now black people are overrepresented, even when it's not gang related and even when it's not related to a fight or argument beforehand. Last point, when you're talking about weaponizing your victimhood, I can't think of a better example of that than reading into, oh, by asking for help when like she's getting into an altercation over a bike, that's racism. Attributing any kind of misgiving or any kind of issue that you have with somebody to, that's racism because they wouldn't do that if they were white. I can't think of a better example of weaponizing your victimhood. Like everything that's bad happens to me. It's racism. If you do something mean to me, if you're mean to me, it's racism because you wouldn't act that way towards a white person. I think Doobie's 100% correct here.
Okay, so let's go to Nina, and then if you can respond. Yeah, okay.
This has gone
And Elder, is that your hands up?
Yeah.
so much off the rails since when I wanted to actually chime in here. I wanted to ask you though, Lactoid. So is there a lawsuit happening, or you kind of seem to imply that?
A lawsuit from who?
Our bike Karen or whatever her name is.
No. Well, there's some people suggesting that she does file a lawsuit. I was referring to Fanatic was talking about issues of well, you can look at civil judgments, and that's like a metric, a barometer of racism, so to say, the terrible barometer of racism.
Which is what exactly? Can you elaborate on that?
So Fanatic was saying, well, New York City's paid out more money in settlements this year or in the past couple of years due to like supposed racial misconduct.
Right. So unrelated to her.
Unrelated to her, right? Now, for her specifically, I think it's interesting, again, how you can say, well, we're just looking at this evenly when she was the one that was put on leave from work. And I had to hire a lawyer because she got in a spat over a bike. That apparently, the evidence we have thus far seems to indicate was hers. If evidence comes to show...
No, it didn't indicate. Okay, we need to reiterate the evidence here. Again, she checked it out for 1 minute. Fanatic did a good job of explaining earlier that video is over a minute. And right as we know within the evidence that her lawyer team put out was about a minute and a half after it was checked back in, she then checked out another bike that she had on her account for 26 minutes, which is the way that she got home.
Right. So it
I'm
looks
going
like...
off of what her evidence is. So she's the one putting forth this evidence. We have not had any counter evidence. It doesn't really matter, right? We're just working on it off of hers, right? So if she had it out for 1 minute and then put back in, and then she rented a different bike, would that not seem that would fit within the video?
No, because according to the statements being put forward, she took the bike out, and then there was the altercation, and then the bike was put back by the time the video started. And the video starts, and then you have the altercation over the bike.
Wait, but do we see the video? Did we see the bike go back in the video?
I'm just reading off of what her attorney is saying. I'll read the actual. I'll watch the actual video.
Right.
Question.
So if we don't see it in the video, then she obviously didn't have it checked out. It was out for a minute.
You guys are missing a key point. So
Go ahead.
let's say that you're
Based off of what her
you're still
lawyer-
wrong if you're right. This is the tragedy of this. You're wrong.
Okay,
if you're right.
really. Okay, well then I don't think that your opinion matters then. So
imagine-
let me just
wait,
continue
wait.
talking to Lactoid
Wait.
then, my guy.
So hold on, Casimir. When you're saying you're wrong, you're right. So my understanding was that the video, the bike was technically locked back by the time the video started. Are you saying that's not correct?
I'm saying that these people, they asserted from a perspective of a rational observer days later examining the situation.
No. This is what her lawyer said. This is my time, my guy. This is what her lawyer said. The bike was locked in on the dock 1 minute later with no charge recorded.
You're conflating the facts that he presents.
No, I'm not.
with the
I'm
reality
reading
in
what
their
they
brain.
said.
If
And then
somebody
there's also a
assaulted her-
second receipt allegedly
if somebody
shows the
assaulted her and
payment
pushed the
for
back-
another city bike from the same dock station a minute after the first
Yes,
one
all of those are
relocked.
facts, but your
It also
interpretation is wrong.
shows a 25-minute trip to Marino claims
Your
with
interpretation
his
is
client's
wrong.
ride home after the
This is why
incident.
you're
So
right
she
in
used
the
that
facts,
bike to
but
ride
wrong
home.
in the interpretation. So your interpretation is that she
I'm
rationally
what
realized
her
that the
interpretation
bike
is.
no longer belongs to her, and realized that the bike might belong to someone else. And
No,
just
Nina, you're
decided
not
to
implying
force-
that. You're
to
implying she
force
was wrong.
herself-
She didn't
just
realize. That's why
decided
she
to force
weaponized her
herself on those
tears.
people. But it's quite possible that she never experienced assault in her life, and when she was assaulted, if she was indeed assaulted, and the bike was pushed in.
So
then
you that's
legally,
another thing I want to bring up with
technically,
you,
the bike is
Casimir.
no
Do you think
longer
that somebody
hers.
who thinks that they're
The
getting
bike is no
assaulted is
longer
going to
hers,
sit
but
and
she's
fight
not
over a
aware of
bike?
that because
Right.
she's
You
currently
honestly
being
think
under
you
assault,
motherfucker?
which is
Shut
what
the
you're
fuck
not
up. Let me talk.
hearing.
Let me talk, motherfucker.
No, you
God
need
damn,
to
dude.
listen and
You
you're
really
just
think
implying
a
that
woman
these
that thinks that
things
she's getting
are
assaulted is going?
everything.
Okay, just keep talking over me.
Casimir, but I want you to be able to respond to her. Go ahead, Nina.
So I
For the
just
love of
want
God,
to
do you think that?
I
Wait,
said,
what?
hold on. I said Casimir. I said Nina. Like, let Nina go, and then you can respond. All right. So Nina, then Casimir, Eldrazi, and Doobie.
Do you really think that a woman who is like a posh, like, which again, she did not live in a rich area, so I don't know where you're getting this information from. It's just like some weird thing they're making up. But doesn't matter. Do you think the woman that would get assaulted is going to fight over the bike? She's going to continue fighting instead of like there was plenty of people walking around. You don't think she's going to walk away?
Can I answer? So a woman is
Absolutely.
not rational on a normal day, but particularly when she's being assaulted and accosted by multiple people, where each one individual
Is that
person
really your
with
answer?
a single move. I know you are interrupting with a single move. That's your argument.
Yes,
from the
you've
debate.
been doing that the
With a
entire
single
time.
Let him go. No,
move,
no.
One of these,
All right.
each one of these men can end her life and the life of her child. Now she's nervous. Now, and this is
So why didn't she
reason why
leave?
you could be wrong.
It's his turn.
Why
It's
doesn't
his
she
turn.
leave?
It's-
No,
it's-
but I have
wait,
to.
wait,
I'll
wait.
explain
Hey,
to
hey,
you.
hey,
Prime, I have to. I have
I'll
to ask.
explain
I have to
everything.
ask.
What?
Why doesn't
Hold
she
on,
just
hold on,
leave?
hold on, hold on.
Filibuster.
No. It's his turn to respond, right? So go
But he's
ahead.
not answering my question. He's gift scalping.
I'm going to just relax.
Yeah, no,
You
but you're
see,
gonna gift
women are
scallop
not
first.
rational,
Go.
and you're not even
Hey,
a
hey, hey.
I'm being
Guys,
very
whoa,
rational. I
whoa.
want you to
Okay,
answer my
all right,
question.
fine.
Why didn't she just leave?
I'm trying. Do you know how to listen? It means closing your mouth.
Ask. Go ahead. Go.
So it's very simple. Listen, you are asserting that legally the bike might belong to the other guy, but she might not realize that. That was the assertion of Fanatic. She might not realize that because it's different from like being a lawyer and examining the situation after and being in the moment when you're. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that she was indeed pushed into the docking station. At that moment, when the bike is docked, she's no longer the owner. She's no longer responsible for that bike. But because she was just physically interacted with in a surprising manner, she doesn't realize what's going on. She doesn't realize the bike is no longer hers. She believes that she's being robbed. She's not believing something that is true, but that doesn't mean that she's doing it maliciously. You have to prove malicious intent, and there's no reason, no evidence for malicious intent. So her tears that you're calling fake, you don't know whether they are fake. You would have to examine another situation where this woman was assaulted. You would have to examine another situation you would have to provide some statistics perhaps of how women respond to being assaulted when they've never been assaulted before in their life. So all of this is the thing that you're presuming. You're presuming it to display her as racist. And you're arguing over facts where you don't know whether she understood those facts. You don't have her mental state. All of this gets presented in court. And this is the core of this case. The racism of this case is your prejudice, is your presumption of her guilt. This is the racism that we should be talking about, not this nonsense about non-existing details.
Okay, so we're gonna let Nina respond. Then we got to go to Elder Drazzy, then DB.
God, is there really anything I need to respond to with that? You're just a troll. I get it. I love that you think that you understand that woman's state of mind better than me. Not to do I didn't, Paul, but let's be real. Considering you have been wrong on like literally everything here, you're really gonna tell me if somebody wants to protect their body, they're gonna continue to fight over something?
Okay.
Is there any evidence that he checked out the bike? Is there any evidence? Is there any evidence that he checked out the bike?
We'll have to work out.
Well, that would have to go in his
Go to
account.
Elder Drazzy.
Why don't we just
Elder.
assume he's in the wrong, right?
Okay, but we know it.
Maybe he was weaponizing his
Wait, but no,
victimhood.
but
He's
we know
probably in
when
the wrong,
she-
right?
but
I
we
gave
know-
you the evidence,
we
Lactua. You were just
know
not
when
intelligent enough to
You
follow
have
it.
no evidence that does he have any receipts? Does he have any receipts at all?
Okay, well, so
I'm
somebody
sorry.
else
Here,
checked out
I'll
the
work it
bike.
out for you really quickly. Listen, what I said was, if you can follow it again, maybe your brain is just not powerful
Is it a
enough.
speculation?
Let's try it one more time. No, it's not a speculation. It's a fact. Here is a fact. The bike was no longer docked at the time when they were fighting over the video, meaning that they had to have been fighting over the bike that was now checked out to a person. The only two people who could have who checked out that bike were the young black man and her, because the video lasted for longer than a minute. I'm sorry, I said I'd be calm. So let's chill.
Yeah,
out.
show me any evidence that it was undocked in that video.
I'm gonna finish. The video was longer than a minute. And because the video was longer than a minute, then that means that it couldn't have been still checked out to her at that point. By that point, young black man had already mentioned multiple times to multiple people, it is on my account. It is not your bike. So because of that, that means then it was definitely not hers anymore, because the video lasted longer than a minute and her checkout only lasted for 1 minute. So in order for the bike to have been on someone's account, it had to have been his, or she would have a third receipt. That's how we know that the bike wasn't the bike wasn't his.
I need to ask.
Hold on. Elder Drazzy's been waiting for a long time. We're gonna go to Elder Drazzy, right? Then we're gonna go to Dibby. All right, we can ask the other question later. Elder Drazzy.
Thank you. So I just I made a couple of bullet points. I'm just gonna try to shoot through them really fast. So if you want to yell at me for what I said, if you could just wait till I finish them, that'd be awesome. I'm gonna finish with a question. I hear a lot of stuff about how the media is skewed and reporting certain ways. Of course, the media is skewed. It's always gonna be skewed in what people want to see. It's a business. They want to make money. If you don't like what you're seeing from the media, stop fucking watching it. Tell other people not to watch it. Boycott that media company you don't like. Quit complaining that they're just showing things that you don't like seeing. And like how they're reporting. I think it's really dishonest to say anything about the facts of the matter that people are doing here when they don't know facts of the matter. And I've seen on both sides of this conversation some grandstanding about the position that is based on things that you can't possibly know. This has been pretty weird. Like, it just seems like at this point in the conversation, people should start like posting like pictures or links or something, because there's so much contention about shit that people are saying they know, and nobody's showing it. I'm not sure that the facts of the matter, like Casimir said, like about the mayor and police stats, these people don't know that. Also, like, I would take the same point to what Fanatic says, where he's saying that she knows that if she acts in this way that she's putting these guys in danger. Nobody's thinking about that shit when they're emotional and they're heated, they're scared. If I'm scared of somebody, it doesn't matter what color their skin is, it doesn't matter any other situation, it just matters that I'm scared, and I'm not going to be acting the way that I normally would. I'm not saying this is a justification for anything, but to act like that this is, like, that people think about these things when they're responding in a way, especially if they're, like, freaked out about anything. I just don't think that's a very honest way to frame it. And I want to end with, I wanted to ask Fanatic a question. Doobie kind of asked it, but I don't know if how he framed it was not good or whatever, so I'm going to ask it like this. You gave evidence, you said that the evidence of racism is clear because of historical instances of racism, and you listed various different things. But I don't think that there's anything to show that this woman was actually acting racist. It's very possible that she could have been, but I don't know that. And I think that when you're asserting that it is based on historical evidence or similar situations like this, that you're inserting an unjustifiable racial component that doesn't need to be present here to demonstrate that something happened that isn't good. And if we're having these conversations, I think it's really important to focus on what we actually can know. If you have evidence of it, throw that shit out there. Let us know, because if this lady is being a fucking crazy racist bitch, fuck her, dude. If she's trying to manipulate the situation like that, then fuck her. But I need to know when people like you say stuff like that you're coming at me with a good reason for that, and that I can believe it when you say that this psycho bitch is actually being racist, because I want to know to be mad at her. And right now, I'm getting things from both sides that are so convoluted and so charged, but nobody's citing anything that we can know for sure when they're making these like bigger claims. So do you have something a little bit more solid?
You're muted, Fanatic.
I said, thank you for the question, and I'll answer it since it seems like a genuine question. I'll answer it honestly. The reason that we know that the reason why I can say that it seems like there's obvious racial animus is because of the fact that she was being deceptive. Deception, right? That the malice is determined by her deception. And the reason why we know that she was being deceptive was because those fake crocodile tears. Not a single tear fell down her eyes, yet she was pretending to sob and cry as soon as the white man began approaching. And the guy repeatedly said in the video, "Oh, why are you fake crying? Not a tear fell down, miss." She didn't dismiss that because it was obvious she wasn't crying. And the second the man told her, "Why don't you just use another bike?" she immediately was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And then got up, used another bike, tears and everything went away as if nothing happened. That's why we know that she's malicious, because she was being deceptive, number one. Number two, the notion that because of the fact that people are in these kinds of situations that they can't be in control of their emotions, they don't understand, they're not thinking of the long-term ramifications. This is obviously not true, as we know from Central Park Karen. Do you remember when she specifically said, "I'm going to call the police and I'm going to tell them that I'm being attacked by a black man"? That was a threat. She knew exactly the ramifications of that accusation, and she did it intentionally. You can say she was distraught because she had a dog or whatever the freak you want to. I know malice when I freaking see it. If you have the privilege to be able to avoid that, that's on you. When I see fake malicious tear by bad actors lying and saying that they're being attacked, screaming help at the top of their lungs, that's when I know that she's being malicious, deceptive, and racist. Freak out of here. The fact that we need to explain to you the possibility of the ramifications of police altercation, the fact that we need to explain to you, shut up while I'm talking. The fact that we need to explain to you the
have no
implication.
emotions besides
Shut up
anger.
while I'm talking. I'm gonna mute him. Prime,
Yeah,
shut
yeah,
that
yeah,
nigga up. The fact that I need to explain to you the racist ramifications of the potential implications when police are involved with a young black man in an altercation with a white woman that's pregnant, no less. The fact that you don't immediately understand the potential ramifications of that is incredibly telling. We all understand how racist our system is. We can obviously see that in order to get the death penalty, the odds of you getting the death penalty when it's a black victim and a white perpetrator are incredibly low. But when it's a white victim and a black perpetrator, it's incredibly high. So we understand the way that this malice happens within our system. We get that the systemic injustice is still there, and that's what she was attempting to weaponize with her fake tears and her fake cries for help when she wasn't being assaulted, and lying and saying that he was assaulting her baby. All of that maliciousness is how we know. And if you can't see it, I'm sorry that you're so blind. Fortunately, some of us don't have the opportunity to be so.
Well,
Jazzy,
I'm not.
Jazzy, you can respond, but then I'm going to go to Doobie next after that, right? So Fanatic, you'll have to hold it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not claiming any lack of maliciousness here. It seems like even if she was 100% in the right, I would still say that she's being a cunt about it. Like, she is acting way out of line, and she could have been like way more chill and just pulled out her phone or something like that. Maliciousness, sure. Maliciousness, if you're being malicious to somebody who's not the same race as you, I don't know if maybe you're just a bitch. Like, you can, like, I've met people that are shitty to everybody that they come across when they're in a bad mood, and I guess the thing that makes this so important to me is that I want to know when I hear particularly streamers who are in politics that are black, when you claim that there is some racial motivation, I want to have a long history of like knowing instantly that this guy always comes with receipts. He's never saying anything that anybody can go in it and pick apart at all. Like, that's super important to me, because people call a lot of shit racist for no reason at all. And like, we've seen this historically. And like, I'm usually on the side of like, if there's like something that looks pretty racist, like if they, like the woman you mentioned in the park, yeah, I think that woman is pretty fucking racist. That seemed pretty obvious to me. The example that you gave, I had never questioned that, really. And I've never seen anything to the contrary. But if somebody like you, or somebody like Prime, anybody who's reporting on any kind of heated exchanges involving a black person and there's claims of racism, I just feel like I want to know, based on the history of the claims, that you are a highly trustworthy person to be bringing forth like something to back that up. Because that, I think that when that doesn't happen, it causes the kinds of conversations that I'm here, like kind of backlash that I'm hearing from Doobie, Casimir, and Lactoid, on to smack them down when you're making a claim so strong like that.
Let's go to Doobie, please.
Okay, so I have 2 points. Lots of things wrong so far, but I'm going to stick to 2 points. So point number 1 is, if we're meant to behave as if nigga is like a racial slur, can you please make sure Fanatic doesn't use it against people on the panel, please?
Oh my god.
That's just not, I don't think that's okay.
I am making my day harder for me.
Well, if he's not okay with that word being used, why does he just throw it around like that?
Wait, shut the fuck
he's already
up,
gone.
dude.
Yeah,
anyway.
he's a fucking bitch. Secondly.
Oh, shut up, dude.
Secondly, just really quickly, this is a more interesting thing. So I think that this like generalizing about like, oh well, police in NYC have a history of racism, or police in other places in the country have a history of racism, or the Central Park Karen did this or whatever. I think actually that's pretty racist. Saying, hey, this other white woman did this.
Do you understand what police
Please stop.
origins
really
are?
Quickly. Shut up.
Well, you get so offended when you hear me mad at you. What are you gonna do it mad to me?
This other white woman did a thing, so therefore this white woman must be doing the same thing. That's actually pretty fucking racist, actually. Secondly, if we're meant to if it's okay to make generalizations about the police, based on the history or the lawsuits or whatever the fuck, we know that up to 90% of the rapes, muggings, murders, shooting, assaults, etc. in New York City every single year are done by black and brown people. That's just true.
You have some stats on that?
So yeah, I can post my chat for you. So
Oops.
if it's okay to make those kind of generalizations,
I was still muted. Twitch, I condemn that language. Don't I'm moderating at Twitch.
I think that's also pretty fucking racist. The entire fucking line of questioning is fucking, or line of like defense is pretty fucking racist. So maybe we just shouldn't make generalizations about people. There's no racial component to this fucking story other than the people being different races. Like trying to like manufacture this into some kind of like race issue when what effectively we have is an argument by two people who might have both thought they were correct from their own perspective.
Also,
Maybe
Shiny
she
Real
thought she had
Guns,
the
thank you
bike
very
out.
much for
Maybe
following me.
she thought
Appreciate
she
you.
had the bike out. That's all. We don't fucking know, but it's an argument over a fucking bike. It's not like it's not a race issue. There's nothing racist about this. So I don't know. I think.
I don't know. Were they
it's
racing
telling-
bikes?
It's telling that that's.
No,
what-
but would you
it's telling
think that
that's
she
where
would
they go.
have behaved like that if it was like me fighting with her?
Yes, actually, if you
She
and
would
your
have just yelled
friends,
help like that, like a
Nina,
psychotic weirdo.
Nina, according to her, she
Her
she
lawyer.
got the bike out. She got the bike out, according to her lawyer. Okay, she got
Not
the
the
bike out.
receipts though, not
Please.
the evidence.
And this guy came up behind her and pushed it back into the sand, right? And well, she was still holding on to it, and then said it was his, right? So if you and your friends, you and 3 or 4 of your friends said that to her, I'm sure she'd react exactly the same way, right? Any reasonable person would be upset about that.
Historically, yell help. Or hysterically, sorry.
Yeah. Oh wait, hold on. So are we meant to believe that her yelling help when she thinks she's being robbed is racist? That's fucking ridiculous.
She doesn't own the bike, my guy. She's not getting robbed.
Okay, but again, if she thought it was on her account, if it was taken away.
Okay, but it wasn't. She was wrong.
Again, she might have thought she was right. Maybe he thought he was in the right. They could both think they're in the right. Maybe it was just,
Okay.
it's just a misunderstanding on both ends.
Well, then why
right?
didn't
There's
he
no
like start
reason
screaming
to
help?
jump to malicious claims on either end here. He could have
But
thought that it
you're
was
the one
his bike
that's
and she was
doing
taking
a
it.
malicious claim.
No, I'm not.
I want to ask a point of clarification real quick. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys know anybody in New York or how City Bike works. Do we know for sure that at the time of the video, the bike was checked out to somebody? The bike was active?
It would have to be
Just comment
locked.
briefly
It
that
would
this
have to be
does
locked. If
not
you could
matter.
write it, it would be locked.
Yeah, but
Or
the
if
bike's
you-
not
it would be
moving
unlocked.
though. The bike's not moving.
Irrelevant.
Well,
You
no.
understand
Well,
it's
let me
relevant,
explain. Let me
right?
explain why it's relevant, okay? Because the bike stopped moving, and the little like card reader is glowing. So I don't know. I mean, do we know for sure whether or not the bike was active or
I
not
believe you cannot get a bike out of like its stock without you checking it out.
So,
Like
so
from
the
what I
point-
know
so-
of, like scooters in Austin, you can't. They don't do
Lactoid.
anything without.
I understand what
Prime.
you're trying to
The
say,
wheels lock.
right? I understand what you're trying to say, right? But from what I saw in the video, there was no change in the indicators, right? One way or the other, right? So you would expect if that there was there was a change in the status of the bike, right? Whether it was docked or undocked, within that time span of the video, you'd see some sort of change. But I didn't see any sort of change. Now I haven't worked used a city bike, but it seems like that would be what you would need. And one way or the other, even that wasn't the case, right? So she rented it for 1 minute, right? And then it's pushed back in, like somehow, right? Don't know how, but somehow it's pushed back in. At that point, well, if it is indeed already locked, it seems to me I'm guessing, and maybe I could be wrong here, but it seems to me that one of them should have been able to tell, like, oh, this thing is locked, right? Like they've been standing there for minutes at a time, pushing this thing back and forth, and they say, and none of them realizes that this is not locked, right? There's there's not more than it's more than 2 people there, right? It's maybe 4. I think there are 3 black.
let me I need to explain where I'm going with this, right? So,
Okay.
according to her lawyer, from what I've been reading, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe we're all wrong about this, but at some point before the video starts, like that's where she checks it out for a minute, and so I guess what Fanatic was saying, his argument was during the time of the video, the only reasonable explanation was that the black guy had checked out the bike, right? That's the only reasonable explanation. Now, there's no receipts of this. We have no definitive evidence, but that's the only reasonable way because the bike is checked out, and he's saying that he checked out the bike, right? That was his point. My question is, so that's an interesting extrapolation, but it could be, especially if the bike was locked, which the bike doesn't move during the whole video, at least wheeled back and forth. If the bike was locked and she had just been on it a minute ago, that would seem to back up her story.
Yeah. So there's 2. I would think there's 2 explanations here. One, the one that Fanatic put forth, and that like at that time he owned it, the black teen. Or the second one is that it got pushed back in whether he did that, the black teen, or not, I can't tell. But at some point, it did get pushed back in, and then it was locked. And then they were both fighting over a locked bike, which is pointless on both their ends, right? And it seems to me that one of them should have been able to figure that out. But that's a possibility that they spent 3 or 4 or 5 minutes like fighting over a bike that neither of them owned at the time.
Right. But if she had checked it out for a minute, the question is why, right? So she had it so when we're looking at the totality of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did she rent it for a minute, then get off the bike? And then this other guy came up and then rented the bike, and then she came over and demanded the bike only to go to a different bike? That doesn't make any sense.
She could have. I have no idea. Like that's
my
the
guess is that she
right?
accidentally because I think if you pull it out and you put it back in, it counts as like being
Yeah,
rented, or maybe she was like putting her AirPods in or something.
So
right, and then she put it back in, like whether accidentally or not, and then she's just being a psychotic bitch about it. It's
I have
no.
idea.
She's on the bike. If she's on the bike and then she is fiddling with it, and then either she puts it back in or this other guy puts it back in. Either way, she's not crazy for assuming that's her bike at the period of time.
Well,
I mean, that's where you have the conversation of seeing like what happens beforehand, right? Like, is it like that they was he like showing like the
Yeah.
Right. So obviously she had it for a little bit, so she might have been like putting her headphones in or something, and then like she maybe was leaning over and like
there's all
locked it
kinds
back
of
in or
reasons
something.
as to why it could have been locked in. I'm not saying one way or the other. I don't know. And none of us know, right? So it could have been that what she said is true, and that he pushed it back in, he pushed her or something like that. There's a physical altercation, or she could have accidentally locked the bike.
Yeah, but why would she, or why would he? Why would he have stolen it if there was another bike?
It is relevant. It is relevant.
It is actually. I can explain.
It is incredibly relevant, Kessler.
I mean, relevant
because if she's saying, look, and also
it's relevant to Fanatic's point. That's what we're saying.
And finally, but there's also the thing about the third receipt, right? So if she if he took the bike, right? If he took the bike and he rode the bike, and it was on hers, on her account, there'd be a third receipt, correct?
No. I don't think people are saying that that specific bike was on her account when he rode it. I think the only question was if she had it for a minute beforehand. Under what circumstances could he have reasonably believed that was his bike? And on top of that, though, that's not even the standard that we're shooting for here. Prime, you just said we don't know. There's a bunch of stuff we don't know. I think the reasonable interpretation, especially if the bike is not checked out during the time in that video, the obvious interpretation is that she'd be not at fault. But if you don't know all the facts, would you agree that just the condemnation of her was pretty premature? Would you agree with that?
I would say no. I never got to state my case. Combination was I'll let you know. I think it was premature when we didn't have all the facts there. We jumped to conclusions. I had seen the story. I didn't know what to make of the story when I first saw it, and we didn't talk about it here previously. So I think it was premature. Again, I don't know what happened previously. I think there's a possibility that it was indeed on his account. That's there's a fact pattern here that works there. Unless we're saying that he got a third bike, a third bike, and he rode that home, or he didn't get a bike at all. That's another option. But my understanding is that he did ride a bike home. So I don't know. Right. So if he rode that bike home, there should be a third. And if her story is true, then there should be a third receipt
from him. That he should have a receipt, exactly, right? Because if he rode a bike home,
no. If it was in the scenario where it was unlocked, right, and they were stealing it from her, then there should be a third receipt.
Well, it wouldn't be possible that.
So the minute, there's the minute unlock. So there's the minute unlock, and then it locks back in, and then if it's unlocked in that situation, then there should be a third receipt where he takes the bike and he goes off somewhere wherever he was going, and then she goes on a second bike. And then she rides.
Yes.
Right. And we have those two receipts. So the only receipt we're missing is his receipt.
No, I'm saying a third receipt on her account.
Wait, can we see these receipts?
Which doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. So by the way, if there is a third receipt, if it's checked out to her when he's like in the video, the bike's actually unlocked under her name. That is just clear-cut evidence that she's in the right. No argument at that point.
But this is an
Sorry,
argument
Which is
for
not the
details
case.
that don't matter, and I can prove that they don't matter.
Sorry, wait.
Can you see
No,
this?
it does matter. Listen, here's why it matters. Because if there's only 2 receipts, if she has a minute beforehand and then she has a 25 minutes on a different bike, that creates the presumption that she's not at fault, right? Because the only evidence so far is that she was sitting on the bike at least for a minute beforehand. Now, the second point is, if we have a third receipt that shows that during the time of the video, it was checked out to her, then that's clearly her bike without dispute. And they were actually trying to rob it from her at that point, right?
If she has 3 on it, then it's her. Then she
undisputably.
wins.
Now,
Yes.
my question for you, Prime, is: let's imagine. I don't know if this is true or not. Could this be a potential hypothetical or a situation that
So
happened?
you're gonna ignore my comment completely, Lactoid, right?
I think it's relevant. You're just saying it's irrelevant.
An hour on this discussion, distracting from the real case. I'm accusing you right now of continuing fanatic
You're just
work,
talking shit
distracting
about
from the
women.
case.
I'm trying to talk about like the times here, about this specific thing. I get it. They're irrational. Blah blah blah. Okay, I want to talk about like, is this particular event? Is she at fault?
No, it's irrelevant. You need to have
Okay.
mens rea to prove racism, not just actus rea.
Oh wait,
You don't
that's
have
ridiculous.
actus rea, you don't have
Nobody
the
here
act,
anymore.
you
Nobody
don't
here
have the
anymore
act because
believes it's
the court-
racism.
You don't have the act because the court case is not finished and the evidence has not been gathered.
There's no
So you should
court
first
case.
of all say that you don't
There's no
have
court
the case.
case.
And
There's
now-
nobody here
now the
defending the
interesting part-
proposition
the
that
interesting part
she was
is if you
racist anymore.
analyze- If you open your brain for a moment and analyze the logical tree of this case, you will discover that even
What
if
case?
Fanatic was right, he was still wrong. Even if
Well, of
he
course.
was right, that she
You just say that
technically-
about everything.
Can
No,
anybody
I'm
tell me if
repeating
they've
the
seen
same
any
point,
receipts?
Nina, that you don't get. You don't get this
There's
point.
2
Neither-
receipts.
None of you on the panel want. Maybe Drazi or maybe Doobie, when he speaks, will understand my point. But my point is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he technically owned the bike. If the only time where it could matter, if he somehow, if she knew that he rang the bike first and then she sat on it first somehow in order to preempt him from taking ownership. And
No,
even
of course
then,
it
Nobody's
Fanatic
saying
would
that.
Still be
No,
very
of
close
course
to
it fucking
assault.
matters.
He would still
No, of course it fucking matters.
unless
Because
you prove that, unless you have evidence to
because
that, what
he
you
was
see-
going to face a financial loss if she had taken the bike, right? So if in your case
you
if it's
have to
unlocked,
positively
then he
prove
faced
that, but
a
you don't
financial
have
loss.
evidence
So
for
he has
that.
every reason to
What
fight
you do
for
have
his bike.
evidence
What?
is that you have 2 receipts from her, and you have evidence that
Mhm.
even if it was just the first receipt,
You're
there's
saying
no
it doesn't matter. I'm saying it matters. That's all I'm trying to prove at that in this particular moment is that it actually does matter.
Yeah, it's pretty relevant.
What,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what
So Casimir, the
matters-
reason it would matter is if they thought they were in the right, if they thought they were correct, then the guy thought he was being robbed, right? So like, both
Yeah.
of them might have like a reasonable claim here to feeling like they were being robbed at the time, which is why they were both so obstinate about giving the fucking bike up. So like the thing is for me is we don't fucking know, and it's totally reasonable to think that neither of them knew at the time either, right?
When
And-
you
and-
believe you're being robbed, there's one thing you are legally obligated to do in New York City.
Shoot him.
Police.
Oh, I mean, that's
department,
racist
there's a
stuff.
fire.
That's racism.
So,
Okay,
so
you
you're
can't-
saying that
supposed to-
the black
If
man
you
should have called the
believe that you're
police on
being
him.
robbed, it is
Or her.
illegal. It is illegal in New York City to take the law into your hands. This is why we pay taxes. This is why we're not allowed to carry around.
Do you pay
handguns.
taxes in our
And both-
country?
and both of
This
them
is-
are in the wrong then.
Where are you
okay?
from, Casimir?
Yeah,
You can
nobody
Law in
did
their own
that.
hands. Yeah,
You
in
can
that
stop
case.
with your racism, Nina. Just because I have an accent doesn't mean I'm not an
I'm being
American.
racist by saying
Yes,
that
you
you're
are.
foreign and I didn't think you lived in America.
Yes.
I don't know you.
Yeah, you could.
Why are you calling him foreign? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's racist.
I can
I don't
confirm
know.
that Casimir
Oh,
lives like
having
2 miles from me, okay?
yeah, make my assumptions on you
So
being
in
foreign
New
because you have an
York,
accent is
we know New York
racist.
laws.
Oh my
I
god,
know
what are you, a
don't live in
soy
New
boy
York, but
fucking
I do.
live, bro? Are you
on,
gonna be
come on.
that
I live in New
sensitive?
York.
Oh, come on,
Right?
Nina.
I admitted that openly. I live in. I'm a
I
New
don't
Yorker
care.
Nina,
I don't
Nina,
know
Nina.
that.
More than 10
No,
years.
I know that
Nina.
now.
More than
Okay.
15.
Nina,
And I know
if someone
local
came in
laws, I
here
just
with
happen to know them.
Oh wait, you're gonna yell at me while he's just screaming over you?
if
I'm
someone
with you,
came
Nina.
in here with a hard Asian
Thank you.
accent, and then someone just assumed that they were foreign, right? Even though like we have foreigners in here all the time, Asian individuals all the time who have accents from their homeland, right? That wouldn't be
Well, I assume his
Yeah, but
dumbass
Prem,
takes were some foreign
Prem, he
shit.
sounds like a European
I
foreigner,
said
so it's
I'm New
okay to be
Yorker like
racist toward
5
him. That's
times
what it is.
before. I don't understand you.
It's okay,
Okay.
Nina. I'm also racist against foreign.
So we're moving past this. Okay, great.
No, the
Wait,
point was
I just really want to know if anybody's actually
Hey,
seen
let
the
the
receipts,
Elder Class-
They
or if it's
haven't put forward
just
any
what the
receipts.
lawyers said.
No, they okay. So
no.
they've been shown
They
to
submitted-
multiple news sources, but
Are
they've
you
not been
allowed to
published
assault
directly.
Okay, so
Yeah,
at least
the
the news
lawyer.
agencies have seen them. Somebody
Yes,
has seen them.
Yes,
Okay.
I mean,
yes,
it's in
multiple
the
multiple
article that I
ones.
sent
Yes.
you. It's in the article that I
Yes,
sent you.
Yeah,
yes,
it's also
Okay.
in multiple ones. So it's not
NBC
just like
NBC
one.
specifically has
Yes.
reviewed the receipts and confirmed their authenticity.
Okay, I
Fine.
didn't understand
Could it-
that part
could
of
it-
it.
That's
Could
fair.
it be possible that she had checked at the bike during that minute? So, maybe it's not. Maybe it didn't happen. But it could be possible that one of them tried to come and take the bike from her, and then she.
Could have lifted her leg and put it over the
you still
seat,
can't
right?
assault
Yeah,
her.
ninja. So I didn't say, hold on, we didn't have any evidence he did assault her. Period. Right? He's holding the
call the
fucking
cops?
bike.
It doesn't look
He-
like he assaulted.
And
her.
she could have called the cops, and he could have called the cops, right? If that's what you want to the game you want to play, then they both were in the wrong. Fuck that shit. But
That's right. They should have called the cops because
they should. Yes, they should have called the cops, but they
five
didn't.
men can't.
Why
Great.
should they have? No.
That's,
Should've
that,
called
Great.
that's not what they do in the,
What?
in the
Yeah,
moment.
whatever.
You're discussing the wrong
Whatever.
details.
Whatever.
Yeah, but she
Anyway,
fixed the problem by just going on a different bike, and then
So
nothing happened to her, and she went home, and everything
didn't
was
know
fine.
that.
why is she on the bike? Because she thinks it's her bike, right? Lactoid,
Exactly.
you're saying
They
Lactoid.
might
If
both
you think,
be wrong. But
oh
the
my
person
god,
who's more wrong is the person
Casimir,
who's physically assaulting the other one.
Casimir, shut up. Thanks. Lactoid. She could have believed after she locked the bike that it was her bike, and she wanted to jump on that bike. All right, so I want to move past this, like the possible scenarios, because I feel like that's like the most boring part of all this, honestly. First of all, I'll go to Doobie first, and then I'll try to respond to him.
So yeah, I agree that the possible scenarios are boring, right? I think what's interesting to me is the way that this became like a fucking huge news story at all, right? Because like really, what we have is like some people arguing over a fucking city bike, one or both of them in the wrong. But this is like an argument over a bike. No racial slurs being thrown. Nobody got beat up. It's like it seems like a nothing burger, right, to me. So, but
Yes.
why do you think it got like national attention? People knocking on her fucking apartment door, going to her, talk to her neighbors, doxing her, all this shit. Like, how do we go from people arguing over a bike to that?
So I'm gonna answer. Okay. I think that that I don't agree with that response. I haven't seen like the docs that you're talking about, but I believe you. I take your word for it, Doobie. That people, because that's exactly what. it
Well,
sounds
just to
like they
be
would
super
do.
clear.
Like,
So, like, she was doxxed and her husband was doxxed, and they're trying to get them both fired. The biggest doxing that I saw was a guy on the Young Turks YouTube channel, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Read out her name and everything, where she works, everything, and encouraged people to go and try to get her fired, like on their fucking show. So, like, pretty egregious, I think.
So I think that for the severity here, that it wasn't necessary, and I wouldn't like go to her home and like show her neighbors this video. Like if it happened like you said, Doobie, then I disagree with all that. But what I also disagree with is your characterization that, well, there were no slurs, there was no violence that we saw, right? No violence that we saw, and so there was no racism. That doesn't line up for me, right? Like racism happens all the time without the use of a slur. Like it could be the case, right? And I'm not stating necessarily that this was the case here, right? But we've seen in the past, like with Amy Cooper in the Central Park incident, that you can absolutely weaponize your tears. You can absolutely try to call in a hit squad, right? Like Amy Cooper tried to do, that disgusting piece of shit. So for a person like her, I'm a bit more sympathetic to her getting fired because her and her racism was just fucking out of control. But for this
Killing me.
particular situation, that woman didn't do herself any favors. She was literally fake crying, right? It looks like she was trying to weaponize her vulnerability, or maybe, I don't know, like she's just insane. I actually can't tell in that particular instance. But that's how
She's choking her dog, so I don't know the sanity's there. You know what I mean?
if that's what in case of this nurse,
Yeah.
I think that helped, right? Like her like very strange behavior during this made this go viral. Done.
Okay, I think
you don't
okay.
know
So
whether she's
please, so I think the idea that she's fake crying at all is like I don't think there's any reason to believe that. So what we know about her, she's 6 months. She's like 6 months pregnant. Just got off a shift as a nurse, right? And she's involved in an
12 hours.
altercation with a bunch of guys yelling at her, mocking her, recording her. She's calling for help, and some guy walks up who like apparently works at the hospital, and she like starts crying with like relief, is what I saw, right? Like that seems totally. This seems like a totally normal reaction for a human being to have. Secondly, I think that like, would you agree that we've also seen cases where black people weaponize their victimhood, and they weaponize it against white people, to get away with committing crimes or treating people poorly or whatever.
I
I'm sure
absolutely
it's
have
happened.
done so. I actually I gave the example previously, right? It was
Yeah.
on that old MTV show Road Rules, where, and I'll say this again very quickly. There was a bunch of kids and on a bus, and they like go around doing challenges, whatever, right? One of them is this black guy, and one of them is this white guy from like the middle of the country. This black guy is a fucking bully the entire time, a fucking bully to this a white kid, right? And then, like in one altercation, the white kid responds, about like they were talking about food, and he's like, "Are you gonna eat cornbread?" Right? Basically, like using that black stereotype that black people like cornbread. So he says this, right? And then the cast loses against him, and then this black bully like starts like like he could actually cry. He actually managed to do it. But like crying, like, how could he do this to me, right?
Jesus.
And they tossed the white kid off. It was bullshit. I couldn't even believe that, right? Like, so yes, absolutely, DB, it happens.
And
We
a little
don't
closer to
know if
home,
she's or
we
not.
also have that video that came out recently, that black guy in New York City on the subway, like berating that white family. When Fanatic was gone from here, watch the fucking video. I think I found him. Okay, I'm gonna
What?
post it in the chat for you guys. I'll post it in the chat for you guys in a bit.
Wait, what
The
did you
guy,
say?
the guy looks and speaks like Fanatic, and he's yelling at a fucking white family. And I think if we had a video of a white guy
Wait,
in
do
New
you
York City,
try and look as racist as possible
I don't think
sometimes?
it's racist at all. I don't think it's racist at all.
Oh, wait,
You'll see what I mean when
videos-
we
Oh,
watch the
come
video.
on.
Crazy.
There's
see what I mean
nothing
when I
more
watch the
racist
video.
than a frog.
But I
let's
think
be
but I think
real.
that if we had a video of a white guy doing that, like berating a black
Okay,
family, calling
can
them a
you
bunch of
link
slurs,
it? Can I
he
link?
calls them
Can you link it?
calls them a ton of slurs in that video. I think that would be like made him like a national news story. People should be trying to find him. So I think my issue, like primarily with this
Well,
whole
it seems like that
situation.
didn't happen, so maybe there's a reason why that
Oh,
didn't
How do you
happen.
know she's white?
okay,
DB,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
know there's a reason it didn't happen. It didn't happen because they're white and he's black. I think that the media itself, right? I can agree with you, Pram, that
And
there
then
is
why is
some
it a story?
racism. There is racism that exists out there, right? Some people are racist, of course. I think that'll always be the case. But I think that the media is driven by clicks and eyeballs and controversy and all this shit, right? So they seek out evil white racism, so they can
This is what
make
you
a
have
big
when you
deal
don't
of
have an
it.
argument.
To make a big deal of it, right? And I think my issue is that they seek it out and they find it even when it's not there, right? And if it's not there, they try to create it, right? And they try to, oh, there's a black person and a white person here, they had a disagreement, racism, obviously racism. Like I think that's a core
Would
of my
you
problem
agree
with this
that
whole
happens on the other side with like Fox News and like places
thing. Not
like
nearly to the same extent. Not nearly.
I would
to the
actually
same
say
extent.
it's
Wrong
significantly
status
worse.
analysis.
No fucking way. Absolutely not.
Are you kidding me? Like, have you ever watched the Daily Wire?
Lactoid read out the stats earlier, like at the start of the panel.
We're not talking about
Media's,
stats. We're talking about the coverage
I
of
know you don't like
things.
talking about stats. The media
No,
is much
because we're
more
not talking
likely.
about stats. We're talking about the coverage of
The
things.
media is much more likely to cover a story when the victim is black and the perpetrator is white. Far more likely. That's just true.
Right, because
Yes.
that's
Because
posted
people
the
are gonna
stats
watch
in
it.
chat.
Even though if we're looking at the stats of like that's actually more rare in our country than the other way around. So like it seems like there is a narrative that they're pushing. They're my
Okay, but you understand why that usually happens, right?
They intentionally create racial division.
Do you think that the stories happen
create
when they
racial division
Let
so
him
they
go,
can
let him go,
they can
Jimmy.
capitalize on it and draw like advertising money? I think it's fucking disgusting.
That's
Okay,
what
do you think
everyone on
that's
TV
maybe
does.
because the reason why people get upset is there's a lot of injustice when it comes to holding, for example, like police officers accountable for the deaths of black men than it is when do you think it's the same type of story if random white man kills black man and then they go to jail? Like, do you think that's the same
Nina,
story and people are going to be as
Nina, how many
interest?
Nina, how
Dude,
many?
let's conduct
Wait,
an
one second,
experiment.
Nina.
Do
How
you
many?
understand? No, wait. Do you
one
understand what
second,
I'm saying?
please.
Do
I understand what
you
you're
understand what I'm
saying.
saying?
I
Okay.
understand what you're saying. But how many unarmed black men would you guess are killed by the police every year?
You want me to guess on stats? I have no idea.
Yeah, just guess.
Yeah,
Just from
we
the top of
already
your head,
did
what
this.
You
would you
know,
think it
I
is?
don't want to guess. What's stat?
No,
It should
I'm
be
not.
easy because I've said it.
Yeah.
Do you want me to remember? Why? I'm not
Just
going
guess.
to
Like,
guess.
is it?
I'm not
Would you
guessing.
guess?
Just tell me what it is.
Would
Why
you
are
guess
you
that
just
it's?
want to
Would you
ask?
guess that it's more or less than 100? More or less than 100?
I have no idea.
Okay, you have no idea. It's a huge problem, but you have no idea if it's more or less than 100.
The
I
exact
see.
number, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to guess on the stat. I don't know why you're
Okay.
going to like try and do this like a
But
gotcha.
it's a
Just
huge
answer the
problem.
It's
question.
actually 1,337.
Did I say that? Did I say that? Did I even bring that up?
Did you know that it's 1,337?
Did I bring that up? I don't care.
Would you?
Okay,
would you agree with me
okay.
that that's the
I don't
number?
know.
Hold on,
Let's not get trapped in this.
It's
You
not
can make your point.
1,337 either.
And
But
not
No,
for
so
20
Just
either.
spitballing it.
Not even 69.
Why do you even talk?
You're pushing the gotcha. Look, she's not gonna say it. The reality is, you can just come out and say it, Doobie. Like, people were dramatically overestimated. Like, more than half of like left-leaning people in this country believe that it's over 1,000, when the answer is like as low as 13.
Okay, is that a stat?
Between
Are you
13 and
speculating on a
26.
stat that people think?
I posted it.
It's less than 10
So your
people,
stat
and
is
you can
based
kinda-
off of how
case
what
by case,
left-leaning
half of
people
them are,
think.
like, in the middle of a
Yes,
skull.
yes. I'm going to read directly from
Okay,
the
so
study.
they're
Yet over half,
misinformed. Who gives a
53.5% of
shit?
those reporting very liberal political views estimate that 1,000 or more unarmed
Okay,
black men are
so
killed.
then they are just inaccurate on their stats. That's a really dumb statistic to begin with, and that's fine. I don't see any
They're
problem
spreading
with that.
disinformation. Okay,
I'm not the one
1,000.
doing it. I
I'm not
literally
saying you
didn't do
are. I
what
said
you're
they.
saying
I
I
said
am.
they. I
So then
said
let's
they.
move
I
on
didn't
from
say
that.
you. I said they. I didn't say
Then
you.
I don't give a fuck. It's irrelevant. All right, go on, Doobie.
Well, I think what's interesting is you also see this on the other side, right? So Republicans are very fixated on trans issues, for example. So there are polls on them where they massively overestimate how many trans people there are in the country, right? So like this
Right,
goes both
sure.
ways. Like this is like a pet project for the
Yeah,
Republicans.
there's
They're
a
gonna
lot of people who
overestimate
are
how big
wrong
it is.
about
It's at
stats,
least
correct.
1 and 2 at this point,
Correct,
right?
correct. Okay, yeah, there's
Yes,
a lot
it's
of
1 and 2.
Yeah.
misinformation
Can we
about
conduct
statistics.
experiments?
We're all dumb
basically-
idiots.
So basically,
what's-
but like it's important. It's important because like we have to properly understand the scale of the problem. I push back against Doobie and Lactoid. I mean, like the stats are fine that you're stating, but they when they bring that up, they act as if the only problem is black people being killed by the police. It's not like literally all their other interactions with the police. It's not like their problem with the justice system in general. It's not all of that. It's just the amount of unarmed people who are killed. And I just want to also put out that it matters when they're armed as well. If they happen to be running away and armed and murdered by the police, that's still wrong too. Just putting that out there.
What is that related to
That might have
what
been
I
the
was
best
talking
point
about?
made on the panel, and it wasn't even directly
I don't
associated.
know. I'm just responding to
That's
them.
what I'm saying. I don't understand why Doobie brought it up. That's my entire point. I don't
I
understand why Doobie brought it
Nina,
up.
just a quick question.
Yeah, can you please explain it, Doobie? Like, that's how you communicate.
Do you know what's the first name of Mr.
You're not
Floyd?
Doobie, Casimir. Doobie, I'm asking Doobie a question. Why did
Yeah,
you
I'm
bring
sorry,
that
what
up?
was
You
that?
ask her that. What's the name
Wait,
of
what?
Why
Mr.
did you
Floyd?
bring Doobie? Shut up.
Oh, so it was to point out the issue, all right?
We're
So
cast-
like or the issue that I was like trying to like illustrate, which is I
Sure.
think the media overfixates on white on black violence when this is actually a minority of the violence in the United States, right, in the first place. And when the other way around, so black on white violence is much more common.
But
Right?
we're not even
So-
talking about violence in
No,
this particular situation,
please.
though, right?
Please. It can be violence. It could be property crime. It could be like rape. Like all of these things are going to be more common black on white. but they fixate on the white on black because I think my perspective, my position, is that they're intentionally sowing racial division because the media is like full of like stupid lefties with white guilt, and two, it draws views, it draws attention. So they like well, hold on, there's actually a ton of studies that show like that white progressives have like an outgroup bias, for example. That white progressives actually dumb down their own speech when they talk to black people. So like, or they present themselves as less competent than they are when they're around black people. Because
That's
again,
liberals.
Yeah,
sure.
that
I'll
was a
give
good
you
libs.
liberals. Okay.
Duby, can I throw in one more
my
stat?
perspective is actually that sure.
Right, I mean the
these,
racism of
these organizations are
representation. I agree with you on that.
full of fucking racists that are intentionally sowing racial division because they want they want like another reenactment of the civil rights era where they get to be the good guys. I think that's what it is.
And they
Wait, they
also
just
want
want like
the
for like
race
the
of this woman.
aesthetic?
We don't
Go
know
ahead.
whether she's Latina. We don't know whether she's Jewish. We don't know whether she's Puerto Rican. Her
Well,
skin tone is on that
what
video
difference
is
does
quite
that
dark,
make?
and she could
I don't know.
be
I'm gonna
Well,
walk
she
away
looks
with
white,
it.
so
It
she
doesn't
could
What-
be
matter.
like
That's how that works.
AOC, a person of
Look, if
color.
you're
Even if
white,
she
if you're
was
white,
Latin,
yeah,
even
if
if
you're
she
white
wasn't
She's
presenting, you're
white.
white.
And
Yeah,
also
yeah,
you
if she was-
assume that she doesn't
yeah, that doesn't fucking matter. If she's white presenting, then that's and hell, you don't even need to be dark skinned to be have white
presenting, sure.
to
Maybe you
have
should
racial
ask her
animus against
before
dark
judging
skinned
her.
people. But in any case, but even then, right? Yeah, she's white presenting one or the other, and that's literally all we need within the context of the situation.
No, she didn't
but
look white
I wanna
presenting
throw-
here on
lactoid.
screen.
One more stat to back Doobie's point. Doobie is saying the intent here is to sow racial division. We do see since 2011, 2012, when you have like the dramatic rise in the media, hyper fixating on race, when the shift happens to where murderers or anything, anytime a white person does something wrong, it's hyper focuses on that, hyper focuses on unarmed black men being killed by the police and all this stuff. To Doobie's credit, right, we also have studies that show that since then, racial relations have decreased dramatically. And I can link that as well. So they were dramatically higher prior to 2011 than they are now, just by all metrics.
Yeah, Han, you think that because more people are, you think it's weird that more people are educated about the violence? Like, it's not that not all black people like suffer at the hands of police, right? Not all black people do that or have those experiences. But do you think that because they're more educated about the things that are going on around them, and it changes how they view themselves in their place in society, that's an odd thing, right? That they might report less racial harmony, like when asked by a surveyor, or
So you could say, well, it's due to that, but then, and to some extent it might be, right? But then you also have to factor in that a large part of it could also be due to misinformation that people are believing, right? Again, going back to the stat we just talked about, one of the biggest narratives right now is unarmed black men being killed by the police. More than half of like left-wing people, like liberals, believe over 1,000 per year when it's under 25 or under 27, between 16 and 27 per year.
Wait,
but
how is it
also on the left,
misinformation?
we tend to understand like systemic racism, right? Like these are the conversations we talked about. It wasn't just we weren't just talking about unarmed police during like the height of BLM. We were talking about like in all the ways that the injustice system hands out injustices, right? So like if that's the case, then of course people's attitudes will change. Like of course they realize that how unfair this world might be, and they'll adjust their expectations for like racial harmony.
Listen,
This is a whole other conversation
wait,
because I think a lot of it's
Lactoid, can I ask
misinformation.
you on the
to
shooting
add a little
conversation?
bit of a different point here. So let's think about this. We have a problem. Let's say that there was a real problem when Giuliani was in charge.
All right, Casimir, I know you want to change the subject. Can I just do something really quick?
I'm not
really quick.
changing the subject. I'm
No,
on
no,
the
no. I know you
subject.
are. I just want to do
And
something
you're
really quick to Lactoid.
always
Just can you give me like a
over-talking
second?
without listening, and I asked you a question. If you want, you want to talk to
Okay,
me?
fine.
Okay, then let's go ahead and.
I want to ask Lactoid something.
It's no. It's Casimir. Casimir, go
Right.
ahead.
So I made a point early in the panel that for between 8 and 12 years of progressive policies in New York City, that's what we had so far. Now, let's assume that by the time that Giuliani or Bloomberg was like 3 terms, so 12 years. Giuliani's, when I believe stop and frisk really intensified. Then Bloomberg came in, and then I think he eliminated towards the end of his term. And then there was at least 2 terms of a progressive New York mayor. Now, I'll give you an example. There's a country called Georgia in somewhere in the world, right? In the Caucasian mountains.
It doesn't matter. It's
Between
outside our
Russia
borders. It
and,
doesn't.
and
Which one?
Iran
The country or the state?
the state of Georgia, the country of Georgia. Now, the country of Georgia had a
Well,
revolution
those are
of
two different
roses
things.
where
Come
the
on, come on, come on.
government
You're talking
fell.
about the country. Go ahead.
Just
Gotcha.
listen. It's very important for you. I'll
Yeah,
bring you to the point really quickly. They Saakashvili was like their president that came in after that revolution, and what he did is he fired the entire police department, and then hired a new police department using new agents within 1 year, and he hired the entire thing like block by block until he replaced all the manpower, and he did that because they had a history of being corrupt and being just like really bad. So he flipped them. And he got a lot of people from the military, like from like ex-military and other positions that are similar to policing, as the fresh blood into the police training service. And so over several years, he replaced the entire police, but the initial wave was like 1 year. He did the same thing for the fire department and multiple other agencies.
Okay.
He did that in his first term in office, and the corruption rating of that country, independently verified by the West, jumped from like one of the lowest, most corrupt in the world, to competing with some European countries within his term. I can show you all of that evidence.
Okay, I don't disbelieve that happens. Can you bring it back? You're talking about being an American here, my guy, and you're bringing up Georgia. You're talking to a bunch of Americans.
Okay,
why can't they do that over 12 years? They had 12 years to do the same thing, to replace every.
You're talking about a country.
Sorry. Okay. I don't.
New
So
York
Casimir,
is smaller, it's easier.
Casimir, this is the thing. I disagree with you on your talk about like this is the years of quote unquote progressive regime in New York City, right? So Bloomberg. After that came the tall fucker whose name I'm blanking on. Lactoid. It was the next mayor of New York City before Eric Adams.
I don't follow that commie fucking state. Okay, I don't know.
All right, whatever.
The Canadian,
the ridiculously tall dude,
De Blasio.
De Blasio. Thank you so much. Right.
De
Blasio made a bunch of promises about like what we was going to do. The police department didn't do damn near any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he didn't do damn near. No, hold on. You're saying replace the entire police department. So here's the part you don't understand about the American system. Oftentimes, mayors don't actually have the power to enact much change at all, right? You'll have incidences where there'll be some like the police will be involved in some other nonsense, right? They'll have shot someone, they'll have done some great injustice to the community, as they usually do, and the mayor will come out and say, "Hey, we're gonna." It's going to be different this time. We're going to take care of this. But here's the thing: they don't have that power.
Yes,
there are.
No, they don't. You don't know anything.
The police union.
Hold on. No, you don't.
Hold on. Don't worry.
Controls the
Hold on. Okay. Dude,
there's no Republicans here.
Yeah, I am going to mute you. All right. Because you're like just saying things. You're doing verbal diarrhea. It doesn't matter. You don't understand what's going on. So within the context of those cities, right, those mayors actually have very little power. The police contracts and the police unions tend to be actually extremely powerful. It tends to be a one-way ratchet of power. And so those mayors literally cannot fire those officers. They may promise, right, but they cannot do that. So to say that to wipe out an entire city's force is extremely difficult. It's happened, I think, once, at least the ones that I know of. It's happened, but like each individual mayor is dealing with a different problem, and so de Blasio, when he was in that situation, had very little power to do actual anything. And so like I have my doubts that he was all that serious about the ideals that he expressed. But even if he was absolutely earnest about it, that doesn't necessarily mean that he could have actually done it. That was within his power. It doesn't matter if there's no Republicans there. And then finally, Eric Adams, the current mayor, is a fucking cop lover because he's a former fucking cop himself. So fuck that shit. All right. Fuck. All right, you completely respond, but then we're gonna move on after this. We have a
Listen.
second topic.
You're right. The mayor himself technically possibly can't do that, but there is no opposition in New York City to any move that would want to push that. In
Yeah,
fact,
there is.
there
Do you
is-
know anything about New
there is-
York
there is
City?
the city
Yeah,
council,
New
yeah.
York City.
there is other legal bodies within the city, and all of them should have been on the same agenda, which is after BLM, they were supposed to reduce the corruption. They were supposed to eliminate the racism out of the New York Police Department. And you might ask why they're doing that, but these are the people that Fanatic wants me in New York City living here to vote for. And I don't have an alternative to them. I have to vote for some of them, and these are the people sitting in the city council. They had multiple opportunities to change the situation. And
What
so
were those
basically telling
opportunities?
me,
You
telling me
don't
is
know
that
what you're actually talking about, and you don't know the
that's the
amount of
only answer
support.
you have.
Hey,
And you
Kenzar, do you understand the
don't
difference
know the
between
amount of
sizes here
support
too?
that's actually for that, right? Like actually, like what
That's what she
I
said.
would do, like the support for what I would do to a police department. Like unfortunately, I understand that that's not there, right? What I would do to a police department, I would go to town on them. But that doesn't mean the public support is necessarily with me. And it doesn't mean that I would have the institutional support or the institutional capability to do that, depending on the jurisdiction that I'm in. Like you're just
Not in New
making
York
shit up. You're
City.
just saying that. Oh well, years pass, and then all the promises they didn't create the utopia. Yeah, I know. Change is hard
did
and
nothing,
slow,
man,
and
in
for
12
the
years.
bureaucracy, the machinery that happens within a city, within a town, right? Like yeah, that makes it difficult. That's the reality of governing for anyone.
Your party controls the bureaucracy, though.
Oh my
Especially
God.
progressives
Oh
in
my
New York
God.
That's
City.
not
Yeah,
how bureaucracy works,
you
my
eliminated
guy.
you're
entire
literally
departments
not even
already.
listening. You're
They
literally not
eliminated the
even
gun
listening.
control
You're
department.
literally not even listening. Like to think that
I'm not listening. You just interrupted
literally
me.
there was a fight within the Democratic Party, right? A fight that far leftists like myself lost. About like what we should do with the police, and the liberals winning that fight, like back the blue. You can listen how Biden talks about the police, right? He's backing the blue. He's
Is this New York?
he wants to supply police officers with more funding, more training. He talks about this is not what leftists like me
Prime, that's
wanted
not New York
at
City.
all, right? So to say that, well, your party didn't do it, like understand that the Democratic Party is actually a big tent party. I don't know why you don't you need me to explain
you
this to
understand
you,
that-
but
that
like
procedure,
yes,
right?
we are fighting a bunch of liberals who are fine with the status quo. We have even within the black community a lot of people who like the police, who want to support the police, who don't want to defund the police the way the police need to be defunded. So yes, this is an ongoing conversation. To say that, well, one party was in charge the entire time. The one party doesn't agree on what the fuck to do. Even then, there's still that everything that I already talked about with the institutional support and the institutional power to actually make those types of changes. But you don't understand any of that. You're saying, well, there's no
I understand
Republicans,
you had
so
the
I guess you
power
could
to
just do
remove
all of it.
entire departments. You had the power to do that. Like the
Okay,
department
whatever.
was.
You're not even listening, so we're moving
No,
on. We're
wait.
moving on.
Do you know what I'm
We're
talking
moving.
about?
Yeah, sorry, you're not listening, so I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Like I
I
really
am
don't even
listening to you,
care.
but you're talking about the national.
Okay, I'm muting you.
Mhm.
So, we're gonna move on to the next topic, guys. If you've been enjoying the content, hit that follow button. You haven't done so yet. Where we get heated here, and it's a lot of fun. And well, two times in two weeks in a row, someone stormed out the first topic. So that's how we roll here. But it gets a lot of fun. So so consider following the channel. We haven't done so yet. If you're new, consider hitting that follow button. Also, of course, subscribe to the channel. That's what powers this. I literally can't do this without you. So if you value what we're trying to build here, consider hitting that follow button. If you got an Amazon Prime, just Prime Gaming, use your 1 free sub per month here on this channel, so that I can keep doing all this for you. Give bits, give subs, all that helps out a ton. Okay. Okay. So let's get started with the second topic. Topic 2. Evidence is emerging that Bill Gates engaged in an affair with a young Russian woman while still married to Melinda Gates. A significant focus of this controversy is the age gap between the two. Mila, I don't know, Gates's mistress would have been in her very early 20s when they met, while Bill would have been in his 50s. This comes in a larger societal context in which men are looked at as suspect for dating significantly younger women. Do you think that dating an 18-year-old completely absolves the partner of criticism, no matter what their age gap might be? Are age gap relationships inherently toxic due to wild imbalance of power? We can all acknowledge that the relationships are perfectly legal, but should society attach shame and suspicion when age gaps occur? I really want to double down on that. All right, we already know that it's perfectly legal, so we don't have to talk about that. Like, oh, it's legal. We can acknowledge, legal. Okay, all right. Trying to move past that part. But yeah. So there seemed to be like a 30-year age gap between the two of these individuals. Again, this is as the context of an affair, but it is what it is. Like, is it right to date 18, 19, 20-year-olds? They are indeed legal. Should that absolve you from criticism? Should no one have anything to say about such a thing when they see it occur? Or is that like, I don't know, some level of bigotry when you attack these types of couples? So let's talk about it. We'll start with my man, Lactoid.
Yeah, so the affair demonstrates that Mr. Bill Gates is a dishonest person. If stealing the shit early on that he stole didn't demonstrate that enough, I think this one definitely does. And I think that's really the only issue with the story. Otherwise, as long as both parties are adults, I do not have a moral problem with large age gaps. It might turn some heads, it might be a little bit weird, but I don't think it's an issue. If you are old enough to legally take bullets and bombs and die for your country, then you're old enough to take some dick. Also, there is a little bit of some sexist double standard here. Madonna is 64 years old, and after recently breaking up with her 23-year-old boyfriend, is now dating a 29-year-old. Yet the conversation is always on Leonardo DiCaprio, or I guess in this case, Bill Gates, even though the age difference there is actually less than Madonna with her 23-year-old boy toy. Look, if we want to make it so 18, 19, 20-year-olds are legally children, then sure, we can take away their ability to vote. We can take away their ability to join the military. Fine, great. We can kick it up to 21 if we want to. But we have to focus on consistency here, right? Either they are adult citizens that can own property and are entrusted with that responsibility, or they are not. Again, the real question is, why are we trusting this guy when we can't even trust him to not stick his dick in random women when he is married? He made a vow. He made vows and he broke them. This guy has no integrity. That's what we should be judging him for.
Okay. I wasn't planning on talking about the affair really, but maybe we might want to talk about that, whether that actually match. We'll see. And we'll go to our friend Casimir. Okay. Please go ahead.
Sure. I think that I'll start from general. In general, in the United States, uh, regardless of the age gap, I agree with everything that Lactoid said. By the way, in terms of like the morality of it, I don't really have a problem unless there is a well, we'll talk about potential problems with fertility and whatnot. But regardless of the age gap, the power gap is almost exclusively in favor of the woman. So even if she's 18 years old and he's 80 years old
And he's Bill
or
Gates.
70, it doesn't matter. The power is always in her hands because of the laws that are written within the United States to protect women. So she will get superior decision in every single possible legal case. In any case of misbehavior, she will get a lighter sentence. In any case where children or inheritance or anything of that sort gets involved, she will get a better sentence than he potentially will. So anytime there's a rich person that has enough money where other enemy lawyers could potentially get involved, the woman actually has more power. Now, Bill Gates, surprisingly, is potentially the only case where that's not the case. And that's not because Bill Gates is that particularly strong compared to other rich men in the country, but it's because he's tied to the government, and that puts him above the judicial system. Because he now has lobbying and government ties, and he could actually potentially do whatever he wants with that woman because he's like a local demigod that can like commit crime after crime,
cool.
and nothing will happen to him. So, but I don't think if we can't generalize this particular case. And yes, I do find it sort of funny. It's like, Hitler is nailing 10 secretaries in his bunker. There are other things that are more worrying about his behavior than the secretaries he's nailing, right?
Okay. Look on Lactoid face says it all. Let's go to Ultra.
So I think that
who's
I
muted?
thought. Oh, you're right. I was. My
Awesome
bad.
post.
I think that. Well, first of all, I thought that the Bill Gates thing was just a jumping off point. I guess we're really honing in on his particular situation. I can comment on that too. But I think that if people have an issue with somebody having a relationship with somebody, then they need to change the age of consent, period. If you have an issue with the age of consent, I don't fucking believe you. Because that means that you think that people are legally allowed to fuck children, and you need to be protesting outside of the courts. If you really believed that, you would be burning down your courthouses, you'd be flipping over police cars. I've seen people do it for a lot less than this, than the government letting people fuck kids. If you don't think that, then maybe just admit that sometimes people do things that make you a little bit uncomfortable, and it's weird for you, but like, that's pretty much it. In the case of somebody having a 30-year age gap, like, Bill Gates is really, really rich. But I think it's a little bit weird to say that there's only a one-sided power differential when, I think that there are, and I think everybody acknowledges the fact that sometimes women gold dig rich men. And I don't think it's a one-sided power dynamic here. If you are as old as Bill Gates is, and obviously he was headed for a divorce, he's probably not getting laid. If you're in your 60s or higher, and some 23-year-old woman comes up to you and says she wants to suck your dick, I don't know how strong the power, I don't know how much the money butts up against that power differential, because you're probably not going to be in a position where you just go, no, I am far too moral for that. I'm sorry, you can't suck my dick. I'm gonna go and lay next to my wife who will not sleep with me and is also very close to my age. I just don't think that there's I don't think it's appropriate to ignore that dynamic is happening, and not every person is going to be strong enough to say no to that. This is a reality of the situation. As far as like the actual gap being there, I don't think you can make any rules that actually make any sense and is consistent across the board. It's just people crying because they don't like things.
Okay, all right. I didn't think we were talking about the affair at all, but looks like we'll have room for that Lactoid. Let's go to Nina, please.
So, this is done as, often is the case where I can tell that none of you fuckers actually read the article. Where it was alleged by Jeffrey Epstein that Bill Gates did this with no actual proof of it, and also like neither party has said that is the case. If you read the fucking article, you would have realized that the main part of it was based off of another article that was saying, oh, Jeffrey Epstein claimed because Bill Gates didn't invest in something to like try. The entire point was Jeffrey Epstein was trying to make Bill Gates look bad in a very much of a every accusation is an admission type of way, where he was claiming that he was being inappropriate with an underage woman, which is, when we looked into it in the article, was not even the case to begin with. She met him at 25. He was 50 something. Yeah, That's an age gap. But there is no proof that they ever had a relationship. They met. There's a picture of them together. That's definitely true. If you watch the video, she's just talking about how she likes bridge a lot. There is no proof or any like aspect of the fact that he ever had a relationship. There's nothing that he ever had a relationship with her. So the fact that you guys have like kind of narrowed on that really makes it seem like you didn't read the fucking article.
I didn't think it was actually relevant. That's all. I just thought it was a jumping off point for the real conversation.
That's fine. That's fair. But regardless, I just want to be very specific on what the article was. There is no proof that he ever did that with her. I don't give a fuck if it did happen. Like, it doesn't really seem like that would be that much of a problematic thing because she was 25 and he was 50. Like, the main reason that a lot of people, like, if we're going to talk about jumping off points is because obviously the power imbalance, like, that it's hilarious. Because I feel like you just probably say some really sexist bullshit, Casimir, because I feel like that's just kind of who you
I'm
are.
going to say that.
No.
Oh no, there's Doobie. Sorry.
Dark Lord and Savior Doobie.
I'm a little bit torn on this one, to be honest with you. So I guess my assumption that like Bill Gates is worth like $100 billion or some shit. My assumption was that like he would be breeding like custom built fucking 1,000 out of 10 women in like test tubes, right? Newly 18 years old when they come out of the tube ready for his penis, right? Like that was my assumption. And so I look at this woman and she's like pretty below average, if I'm being honest. And that was like really surprising to me. So that being said, I think like the reason this is like a topic of conversation at all, right? So whether or not it was true that he actually fucked her or whatever, whether or not he cheated, I think it's just fucking weird to think that when he was like 4 years into Microsoft, was landing $100 million contracts before she was even born, right? Like that's fucking weird. There's something off about that. So I don't know if I buy like the power imbalance thing, because I mean a power imbalance can exist in any relationship, right? In any relationship where someone has money and someone doesn't, somebody has social status and someone doesn't, someone has a health issue and someone doesn't, right? There's a power imbalance. Someone loves the person more, right? There's the power imbalance. I think that the reason there's like this reaction is it's just fucking creepy. It's creepy to think that he was so old when she was born, and I think that there is something wrong with that. So like you guys saying that you have no issue with him fucking like a 17 year old like 1 day after she please stop. I'm sorry, an 18 and 1 day year old woman, right? You have no issue with that. Fresh out of high school, Bill Gates sticks his dick in her. You have no issues with that at all. I think that's fucking weird. I think that it tells me that there's like maybe you guys have like some demons that you're fighting, because to me that seems like unethical. It seems immoral, right? It seems like a bad thing to do as a human being. So I don't know. I just think it's icky, and that's why there's like this reaction.
I'll if I can respond to that directly. I do agree that there is a minor ethical thing. There could be a religious ethical thing if you're like a Christian.
Did that happen?
Maybe not a Christian thing to do.
I don't know. Well, I'm talking about like the hypothetical of any 50-something-year-old dude fucking an 18-year-old.
Then.
I think
yeah. So separate. If you want, we can separate from Bill Gates.
Fertility is involved.
Any 50-something-year-old fucking 18-year-old.
Can't have.
I think that would be more fair.
Casimir is talking. Why is everyone talking over Casimir?
I don't know. You got really quiet.
I want to agree with Doobie. Maybe there is. I see an ethical issue if he's like infertile, meaning, or if he has children with her and she wants to have children, and they will have like genetic issues because he's too old, and that's a real concern with men over 50. Then that would be like an ethical concern because he can't perform one of the functions of a potential husband. And I do have some problem with them like having sex out of wedlock and. The potential ramifications of having children. So he should divorce his first wife, and then if he marries somebody young, if he passes a medical examination and there's everything is fine in the
To get
baby making
married?
department, then
fuck
I
did we
don't
get
see an
here?
ethical
Oh.
issue there beyond that.
Casimir.
Wait, hold on. So I guess hold on. So I just want to
How
like
do you
clarify.
live
So I
like
think
this?
so maybe I'll be more direct. Okay, so what this makes me wonder is what keeps him from fucking 17-year-old or 16-year-old or 15-year-old or 14-year-old? Is it really just the age of consent law? Is
It's
that all it is?
disgusting.
Hey, the law says 18 years old,
Oof,
so therefore
very
that's where I'm going
underdeveloped
to limit myself. Like
So
so
first of all,
are you saying that if the
18
law
plus only, right?
This is a
14
risky
years old,
conversation for
if the
Twitch.
law were
Yeah.
14 years
not,
old,
not
you guys
willing
would
to
fuck
entertain
14-year-olds?
18
Is that
18
honestly
plus
your
only.
position? Does it being legal make it moral? Like I'm asking. So you guys specifically, if it were legal to fuck a 13-year-old, would you fuck a 13-year-old?
Absolutely not.
Do
Why?
No, and
It's legal.
that
What's wrong with it?
we can't even discuss this topic
Oh,
rationally.
you
Gross.
can't
I don't
answer
even
the
wanna-
question. That sucks as fuck. See, I can answer the question. I can say no. I wouldn't fuck a 13-year-old.
Maybe
It's
I
not
would
that
not
hard.
either. I would not
a
either.
societal standard for 18
Brave
years
stance,
of age.
Lactoid.
Yeah, it's
I
brave.
know.
To lower it
Casimir,
below,
why
I
can't you
wouldn't.
answer that question?
I don't think it should be that low.
I wouldn't even
Wait,
fuck a
Casimir, why can't you
19-year-old.
answer that question? I'm confused.
Wow,
The age
super
gap is
moral
the
state.
point.
I wouldn't fuck an 18-year-old. Okay.
No.
So-
I wouldn't fuck a 13-year-old.
No, Neela said she wouldn't fuck an 18-year-old.
No, I'm saying a
Yeah, I
19-year-old because
agree.
I think the
Anything below 18
age
you
gap is a
shouldn't
little
fuck.
weird to me.
So if we were in like France or something, or like Japan, right, and the age of consent was 13 years old, would you fuck a 13-year-old?
That's not
No.
the age of consent there. You're omitting details.
Just answer the
I'm asking
question.
you.
And the answer
Hold on,
was
I'm asking
no.
you. Okay,
Okay.
so you wouldn't. So why not? If it's legal, like what's the issue with it?
The issue is that the heuristic of 18 years of age is based on a certain state of brain development. And we know that between age 18 and 26, roughly, on most humans, they're able to reach a state where they can consent. So I'm willing to push it closer to the biological age, which is roughly 24,
Around 25, 26.
25,
All right,
let's
I'm done
say,
with
right?
that.
I'm
Age of
willing to
consent,
Technically, it's
25.
and technically it's
Yeah.
34 is when the final brain pruning happens. So let's make that clear.
I think that's.
Let's
I think
figure
there's
mega
evidence for that on this
evolution.
panel. 'Cause I'm 34, and I feel like I'm the only one here with a fully developed brain.
Oh,
Yeah,
I swear that you're the
Yippee
most
is
racist
old as
one.
shit. So, fair
Casimir,
enough.
I just everything that you said just absolutely blew my fucking mind. I have heard a lot of shit talking to people like Doobie and I don't know, Lactoid's had one here or there that really got me, but this one probably takes the cake. So
I hope you.
I'm not
actually
really
heard me
sure-
avoid interruptions.
I'm not
No, no, no.
sure where your like foundation for a lot of these things are coming from. So when I was 22, I married a 39-year-old woman. Okay. And now I'm married to somebody who's younger than me, and I have a vasectomy. It seems like you'd have a problem with everything that I've done. And I'm just trying to figure out, is this like the Bible's not like this? Like, where are you getting these moral ideas from?
So I think that if you had a vasectomy and you have a new partner,
Yeah.
and the partner consented to like marrying you while knowing that you can't have children until you maybe reverse the procedure.
Happened
I don't know
after.
if it's possible. Right. Okay, fine. Then if they consented to it, that's sort of fine. I agree. But I tried to. I started off saying that I don't see any moral issue initially, but then I realized, oh, if she has an expectation to have children, then it might be plausible to have a moral issue. Do you understand the point now?
No.
No, unless you're saying that he's getting what they're saying, I'm gonna put babies in you. And she's like, that's exactly what I want. And he's like, this stupid bitch, I don't even have any fucking sperm left. My balls are all dried up, I can't do it. Then there's a moral issue. He's tricking her, he's manipulating her, he's fucking her over. I get
that's
that.
what I hypothesized. Yes, exactly.
Okay, that part was not made clear at all to me.
Yeah, people overtalk me, so
Prime.
it's hard to listen to me.
Yeah.
Prime. Please answer my question. I have faith in you. So,
Okay.
is there places on the planet right now where it is legal for an adult, 34-year-old man like myself, to put my pee-pee in someone who's like 14 years old, right? So, like, is it? So I'm wondering, like, so maybe if I had grown up in that society, in that culture, I would think that's okay, right? Maybe it's just like a subjective kind of cultural thing. But I'm wondering, like, so you guys having grown up in like a similar culture to me, I think, I hope. What is it that keeps you from saying that if you're in that culture with a 14-year-old who'd been raised in that culture to believe that it's okay for them to have sex with an adult and that they have been taught, the concept of sex with an adult at 14 years old? Like, what would be wrong with having sex with that child?
My client cannot answer that question, dude. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I gave him an answer.
Well,
and he
I
now
have
needs to
a-
Steelman it since he asked it twice. Steelman my answer that I provided to you, Doobie.
Hold on. So I don't think the
Asked and answered.
the expectation of children and all that is even relevant, right? Because
No.
Because I would say that.
Besides that,
Well, I
gave a
guess you have to
separate
ask. Do you
answer.
think 14-year-olds should be getting
answer, You
pregnant?
don't remember it, so there's a problem on the panel. I gave an
Oh,
answer.
hold on. You mean the brain development thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you, I mean, I'm sure you'd agree that someone who's 18 years old is at a very, very different stage in brain development and life experience than someone who's like 50, right? So like if the brain development is a thing, why wouldn't we take the life experience and additional brain development of a 50-something-year-old to say that, oh, well, hey, these people are at different stages in their life, different levels of cognitive ability and experience, so they should not be having sex.
This is a false
Because
equivalency.
you set a minimum threshold somewhere, and I'm telling you that below that minimum threshold, they cannot consent. And I'm saying that I'm estimating that minimum threshold at 18, but if we are to change it, I'm willing to only raise it up, because biologically, the more we know, the later in life it becomes. However, once you reach
Okay, I'm gonna ask something uncomfortable.
Okay,
and
I
you can
stand
make
with
that
that.
voluntary decision, then you can make
Okay,
it
raising the age of consent.
with somebody who's a 500-year-old vampire, and I wouldn't care.
Do you guys
don't
think
like
that
where this is
teens can
going.
consent to sex with other teens? Do you guys think that teens like 15-year-olds, 16-years can consent to sex with other 15 and 16-year-olds?
No.
No,
I think they do.
Defeated
That's
your
an
trap,
interesting
I think
dude.
it
High school
happens
students
all the
can't consent to
time.
sex with each other? Is that really your
No.
position?
Yes,
I'm
really.
saying that
Why?
their parents should be responsible for them engaging in sexual relationships when
That's
they're
really
not
not
ready.
the question.
And I don't think that they should be punished. I'm not sure to the extent of which their guardian should be punished, but their guardian should probably be punished. Definitely.
No,
should.
they
Hold
should
on.
be
How do you
punished.
stop
They
them?
should be
That's
punished
Sounds
Specifically,
like
specifically.
a
your position is-
non-American
The
with that
believe-
authoritarian
No,
ass
You believe that
take.
high school students can't consent to having sex with each
Correct.
other. That's your
Correct.
position. Okay.
Correct.
Can you explain, please?
Right. So, going off what Casimir said, this idea of there's a minimal threshold of mental competence. That makes perfect sense, right? We've established it somewhere. I think anywhere between 18 and 21 makes sense to me. I think I would estimate that'd be a reasonable minimum threshold. I would like consistency. Doobie, if you can vote, if you can fuck me over in the presidency, if you can go and take bullets, I don't understand why. Like we as a society clearly have established, okay, you are old enough to consent to doing those things, which are like have some often, especially with taking bullets, have way more gravity. Then it doesn't make sense to me that you couldn't consent to having sex.
If there was
So
no
then the
military, it would be the same.
Right, but we have a military, and that's always going to be the case, at least during our
I'm
lifetimes.
just curious if that was the only reason.
Well, no, there's other things too,
Okay,
and I'll go into that. But the question posed, and then the question is, okay, you have somebody under the age of 18. Well, we've established that they cannot engage in certain activity that's particularly risky. So what do we do when we catch? And by the way, there's plenty of risks of sex, including pregnancy, STDs, physical injury, and emotional injury. What do we do when we catch children doing something they're not supposed to do? Well, if they're drinking alcohol, we confiscate the alcohol and we give them a ticket and we make them go to alcohol classes, right? That's what we do, because we say, this is something that children are not supposed to be engaging in.
No.
This is what we do. That makes perfect sense to me. I'm telling you,
Nobody
this
does
is what we
that.
do. Okay, you're
I've
wrong.
never heard of
Like
that
legally, okay, maybe my state's like a weird anomaly where.
Okay, so how are you relating that to
And you
sex?
punish the
I'll
parents,
get there. I'll get there, because alcohol consumption,
right.
just like sex, is a risky behavior that we don't want kids engaging in. And so when two children are having sex, like if you have a 15 and a 14-year-old or a 16 and a 15-year-old, I would have the same prescription, which my state actually does. My state does have that illegal. And what the prescription is,
Wait, what is illegal?
we having sex under the age of 18, even with another 18-year-old. It's called underage sexual activity. It's a misdemeanor. Obviously, it's a misdemeanor though. So once you become an 18-year-old,
I think you might have misspoke.
Sorry. We gotta. I want to hear what he says.
once you become 18, obviously, it's a juvenile record. It gets wiped. What my prescription?
I just
what
want
my
to.
prescription-
No.
Let me just qualify. I'm just qualifying. I'm just qualifying.
Yeah,
I
that's
understand
what
her question. I think it's
So
the
can you say
Oh,
like a 15-year-old can fuck another 15-year-old? Yes.
Oh my God.
That the question that Doobie asked is, can a 15-year-old fuck another 15-year-old?
No, I'm at.
Okay, I'm muting you now. I want to hear what he has to say. Like, go ahead.
Legally, no, and under my opinion, no, because children cannot engage in activity that's risky. That's the point. Like, that surpasses a certain risk threshold. This is why we don't let a 15-year-old have sex with a 25-year-old, because the act of engaging in sex is risky. We do let 25-year-olds, let's say, force a 15-year-old to eat their vegetables. or force them to do something else they might not want to do if it actually is good for them in the long run, right? Adults are in a position of authority to force children to do things that they don't want to do, but the limit is it beneficial for the children and is it overly risky? Well, if a child can't consent to having sex with a 25-year-old, I don't see them being able to consent to have sex at all, because sex carries the same risks regardless if you're dealing with a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old. And obviously the punishment's going to be different because the perpetrators are of a much more immature state of mind. So what the best solution here is, we catch two 15-year-olds having sex, we do what my state does, which is force them to go to extra health classes and give them tickets. That's the best idea of what to do.
I think that's bad and harmful to the 15-year-olds.
Psychotic.
I think that we have I think there's been a really long history of the church and uptight parents trying to convince their kids to not have sex with each other.
Kids should not be having sex.
Okay, well, hang on. I think that it's been tried every way imaginable to stop them from doing it. They're gonna fuck each other. That's because human beings, we want to fuck each other, and I think
They're
it's
also
much
gonna
better
drink.
I think it's much better for them to experience it with somebody who doesn't have. I think that it's really bad for a 15 to fuck a 25-year-old, because there are things implicit to that kind of relationship. There are serious, unreconcilable power differences there. If you're 15 years old and you live at home with your parents, and you're 25, you have your own house, you have your own car, you have a source of income, there's a lot of ways that you can manipulate this person in ways that they have not been exposed to. But if you're doing it with somebody that's on the same footing as you, this is how you this is how most people are going to have their first time experience. This is how most people are going to have their awkward and embarrassing experiences. I think it's just part of life. I think that it's really normal, and I think that it's really weird to try to say that this should be illegal. I think you're stunting.
I gotta grill you. I gotta grill you. I got a couple things on what you said, because these I've had this debate a couple times. These are like the most common.
I don't think we should encourage it.
So sure, we shouldn't encourage it. I guess the first. I've got so many points that I'm kind of losing track of them a little bit, but I'll try. So we have a situation where children are engaging in activity that we don't want them to do. You just said you wouldn't encourage it. I think that is sort of saying, okay, you don't want them to do it. When you say there's a power, when you say, I understand. When you say there's a power differential, my question for you is, how does that actually affect the risks at play? Look at the teen pregnancy rate, for example. Okay, do you think there's a significant risk of harm for a 15-year-old girl for getting pregnant, regardless if she gets pregnant from another 15-year-old or a 25-year-old? Is the fact that she's getting pregnant kind of a major life disruption in of itself?
I think that there is a bigger risk. I think that if there's a 25-year-old, there's a lot of malicious things that 25-year-olds might be up to that could lead to her getting pregnant that 15-year-olds are not up to. I think that if things are happening in a safe way between, not only that too, you're smuggling in these ideas that I think that at any point that it should be done without protection or without some kind of birth control or anything like that. There's a ton of other prescriptions that could be put onto here. Well, we were talking about the risk of pregnancy.
Elder, is your issue when you're talking about the power dynamics? My question for you: if you have a 25-year-old who, let's say, gets supervised by a police officer and the parents, so there is no risk of manipulation, are you okay with a 25-year-old having sex with a 13-year-old girl?
What does that mean?
No risk of manipulation.
Well, we're changing the
How is that
we're changing the age a
possible?
bit here, but
15. We'll keep it at 15. Okay, 15 and a 25-year-old.
Well, Lactoid, when you were 25,
I don't think
do you want
adults
to fuck a
should watch a
15-year-old?
15-year-old have sex.
That's irrelevant. No, it's irrelevant to the question. The question is, it seems like when you keep bringing up power dynamics, there's a risk of manipulation. There's a risk of this person doing this. If it was supervised, hold on.
What do you mean if they were like literally watching it?
If it was supervised by like a judge, and like it was like they fucking signed off and everything.
Them fuck.
They signed off on everything to make sure it was not manipulative, and they know for a fact, and they're monitoring the sexual relationship, so they know it's not manipulative. They know that nothing's wrong happening, or nothing wrong is happening according to what you're saying.
No,
at that point, would you be okay with a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old?
No, this is still deviating from the thing that I think is normal and natural and how humans are going to interact with each other. I think that when you are past the age of puberty, you're going to experiment sexually with your peers.
You're dodging the question. Hold on, you're dodging the question.
I said no first.
No, then the follow-up question is why? Because when I ask you why is it wrong,
I did answer that.
When I ask you the question, why is it wrong? When I ask you the question, why is it wrong?
Wait. Maybe I need to reframe.
Hold on. You just said I'm hammering this because this is an important point, because most Americans are under this weird fucking bizarre like perspective where it's like, I think kids could fuck, but then like deep down they actually don't think so. What about like a bunch of 15-year-olds got into an orgy? Would you have a problem with that? I would have a major fucking problem with that. What if you had a judge and a police officer supervise a 25-year-old so that there is no power dynamic issue, there is no manipulation? Like, then is there a problem? Clearly there's a problem.
25-year-old fucking a 15-year-old?
Yeah. Nina, what's wrong with a 25-year-old having sex with a 15-year-old?
Well, why would a 25-year-old be interested in fucking a 15-year-old?
I don't know. Let's say they're like interested.
They have sexual attraction.
They have sexual attraction to a 15-year-old. Let's just say it exists.
Yeah.
What is morally wrong with this occurring?
Why would you even enjoy being around a 15-year-old for 25?
Oh my God,
We're
Nina,
already supposing that they
They
are
want
here.
to put their pee in them. They're like a hebephile or whatever. Like they want to fuck the 15-year-old. So like what?
Yeah, like,
what's immoral about that?
The idea of being sexually attracted to a 15-year-old as a 25-year-old is just so foreign to me that maybe somebody else needs to explain it. But like, I don't.
But then
I don't understand what the appeal would be, because you would have nothing in common. You are two completely different aspects of your life.
None of that matters. Literally, none of that has ever mattered.
I feel like it does matter.
Men who want to stick their dicks.
Do you think this never happens?
Mila,
do you think this never happens? You can't imagine it ever happening because it's never happened before. Is that what you're saying?
What do you find interesting in? What do you find?
It's unimportant.
We're just saying it happens.
I mean, it is incredibly important.
Okay,
not
so
your particular aspect.
It's like obvious. Look, I can't get inside the heads of these people.
Okay, let me explain why I think it's an issue.
They like it. I don't know why.
Let me explain why it's an issue. Yeah, because they don't want to deal with somebody who's actually like of their age and like smart enough to know, and they want to deal with some idiot that has no idea what the fuck's going on, that they can basically convince into anything. Like
it's supervised by a cop.
I'm talking to someone that had this happen to me, where I do understand why they were interested in that, because I would do anything that they wanted. They basically convinced me we had to have sex every single night. Like, and you know why? Because they made it seem normal, because they were older than me. So then they made it seem very normalized.
There's 15-year-olds that do this. They're 15-year-olds. There are 15-year-olds that convince their 15-year-old girlfriends to have sex every night. Yes.
Hey,
I don't give a shit. That's not what we're talking about, though.
That's what we're talking about, because some people here think it's okay. No.
We're going to be debating on her own sexual past like this.
I'm sure that happens.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna handle this. Okay, all right. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this. I'm gonna pass this. If you answer the question, great. If not, that's fine. Okay. So look, you established, and I'm sorry to hear it, that you had some bad experiences with someone who was older than you, who tried to convince you of those things, right? So but by your story, you understand that an older person can have interest in a younger person, whether it's legitimate or not.
Yeah, because I was an idiot. And easy to manipulate.
Manipulation, sure. Okay, all right. Anyway, or to have sex. But anyway, what was the larger question you wanted to ask, Latoid? We'll give it one more try, then I got to move on.
Sure. I think I've asked the questions, and I people are saying it's natural. People are saying that like the kind of like the naturalistic argument of like, well, this is what has happened, but that's really not. Well, first of all, like if we want to focus on that, I mean that leads down very dark roads, because I mean they're historically, if you want to go back to caveman times, I'm not sure there was really all that many limits on for 13-year-olds and 25-year-olds really, or 15-year-olds and 25-year-olds. The reason why it's wrong for somebody under the age of 18 to have sex generally, right, is because this person is below the age of consent, and they cannot consent to risky activities. They cannot consent to drinking alcohol. They can't consent to smoking cigarettes. They can't consent to sex. They can't consent to gambling. They can't consent to joining the military. For all of these things that carry with them a tremendous amount of risk, we say you are not developed enough to know whether or not you want to engage in this behavior. And if you engage in this behavior, you're not doing it from a place of informed consent. You're not doing it from a place of understanding. That is the problem. And if we establish that as the basis, which is okay, if you're under the age of 18, you can't consent to have sex, that doesn't just apply to people who are over 18. That applies also to people who are under 18. But again, people who are under 18 who do something wrong, like have sex with somebody under 18, which is wrong, we should punish them accordingly to how old they are. So no, don't throw them in prison, but maybe extra health classes and a fine. The same thing we do when we catch them with booze or weed. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So I'm gonna respond to you, right? And Casimir, I see your hand. I'm gonna respond to you and Doobie. One, I think the problem is is that I don't want kids having contact with the judicial system because they had sex. That the thing is, I'm not comfortable with at all. I hear what you're saying, in that, well, maybe kids can't consent even with each other. Fair enough. And I think you brought up a lot of interesting points there. But I wouldn't like, especially like, who would that be used against more? I think would actually be used more against people who are LGBTQ in their relations. If we could like you know criminalize their behavior and make it a police incident. So I'm against that. But I can see that as a society we can maybe steer them away. You can say you can do all the same thing. You can recognize there's a problem if an adult catches them, and then you can direct them to not do that behavior. You can do that without the benefit of the law.
Would you be in favor if it was just, again, like, the punishment was not like overly punitive, but it was like similar to, like, let's say we catch a kid drinking liquor and behind his car. Like, surely if the cops catch that, you would want them to stop it,
I
right?
don't want. I absolutely don't
I don't think they
want
should go to jail.
people to have anything
I'm
on
not
their
saying that.
Blackfoot is
record,
providing the wrong
because it
answer.
makes things much more difficult for those kids. I wouldn't want them to have that on record. Okay, I'm going to go to Doobie. Doobie, you asked a question previously. Are you still there, Doobie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you asked a question previously, and I didn't get a chance to answer. So I'm gonna answer it directly. You talked about like some nation out there, right? Let's call it Ancapistan, where you could fuck 14-year-olds, right? And whether I would, if I was placed in that country. So I would say I would not. If I was, if you plot me into this country and this place was, and it was perfectly legal, I could do it. I wouldn't do that. Okay. And I've argued like before, many times before with you here, that we should raise the age of consent. So I think you should raise it to like 25, right? Like I think maybe Cass was saying previously. But that being said, I don't know how I can necessarily criticize a person, like a 25-year-old who had sex with a 15-year-old within that nation, um, if they don't have any sort of understanding otherwise. Like if they've grown up in a nation, in a society that says that this is a positive thing, that there is no issue here, and if when they engage in that activity, that that their younger partner consents, whatever that word means, consents, and doesn't express regret or any sort of hurt. How would a person who's grown up within that context know otherwise? So I don't know like how I could necessarily say that you're necessarily a bad person if the society tells them there's no harm, and the children are reporting no harm. So I hope that answers your question, Duke.
Yeah, it does.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yes?
I can rant more.
I wouldn't fuck the 13-year-old.
Good.
Doubt.
And in Ancapistan, you wouldn't be able to do anything with children either, because in Ancapistan, the theory we have is that children, there is a position that's open that's called guardian, and it's normally occupied by parents, but anyone can fulfill that position theoretically, and that position is similar to like a guardianship or a trust, where you're taking on obligations, and if you don't fulfill those obligations, then you are potentially liable. So your obligations, until you remove yourself from guardianship, until you declare that you're not, and you find someone else, that's one of the obligations as well. You can't forestall it. You have to find someone else that would be able to replace you, or at least.
Well, the
It
local
doesn't matter about
community
the
could
details.
define, the local community in Capistan could define that the age majority is 15, right?
Right.
No, they won't be able to, or at least if they
Why?
try to,
Well, how?
then it would be a thing. That it would be a possible cause of war if we were to prove that
Isolated
it's
island.
very likely that those people cannot actually consent. Consent is the key. It's
Wait,
very
hold
important.
on.
And
Wait a
the
minute,
people
what?
who are punished. This is the core of my point. The people who are
Would you
punished
really
are the
have that?
guardians. The children are not punished at all. They're potentially educated, but they're never punished. The punishment that Lactoids talks about applies to the guardians. The guardians pay any fines that society imposes on them based on local laws. But the children, they get education. They get separated, perhaps forcibly separated from that other person because they are not in control. The
That
guardian
part's
is in
less
control.
interesting. Well,
Yeah.
look. Go ahead. You can do, but you can handle it.
Sure. So what would keep a community down the road of pedophiles and hebephiles of creating a different community where the age majority was 13 years old, in that community fucking children.
The same thing that it's keeping them away from the current reality, which is if we care about it enough, we can go to war on that topic. We can say, don't do that because you're enslaving children and you're violating guardianship. Just like I believe that it's quite possible to justify invading some Middle Eastern country if they practice female genital mutilation. I think that would be a proper cause of war instead of like they have oil, let's take it.
So you would say that because
liberating
you're
slaves is a proper cause for war. Yes.
sure. So you would say that because your ANCAP community has like a different contract, you get to go to their community and impose your contract upon them, and
I'm saying that
aggressively you got to break the
I'm saying that
nap
it's
and attack them.
no, it is. So it depends on whom you're talking to. From my perspective, I'm not violating the NAP because I'm offering help to somebody who's violating their guardianship. And if I believe honestly that 15-year-olds can't consent, then yes, I can go to war with people that do believe that. And one of us is factually correct, and one of us is factually wrong.
Oh, good. In the way,
But
that's how the
but
libertarian.
there's layer of knowledge and there's layer of fact. And I believe that's what we navigate in any of our decisions. We navigate something is objective reality, and then we estimate it what deals. So I can potentially escalate. It'll be a slow escalation, but I'm responding to a hypothetical. Potentially, at the end of that escalation, there could be war over the topic of their children can't consent.
This is interesting because typically when I talk to an ANCAP, they will say that the only thing you could do to those people is exile them from the community, right? So if you're saying that your ANCAP community would go around imposing your rules upon other people who haven't agreed to your rules, that's interesting, I guess. But it sounds like you just taken a few extra steps and made a state like the one we have now that goes
It
around
sounds
imposing
that
laws
way.
on people.
But do you notice that there's a principle involved? When there is a principle involved, it's no longer arbitrary. Meaning the principle is that we're trying to determine where does consent, meaning full consciousness, begins. And if I'm more right that it's
That's not
closer
what that
to
means.
18
It's
than
not
it's
really
to
that though,
13,
because I
Let
mean,
'em
so for
cook.
example,
then
the United
objective
States
reality
and
is
other
closer
countries.
to me than to the other person. So it's not arbitrary.
Hold on, but like so Russia, for example, justified going to war in the Ukraine to save the Ukrainian. I'm sorry, the ethnic Russians there, right? For example, one of the big things during the war on terrorism is, oh God, we have to save these people living under the oppressive rule of the Taliban or whatever the fuck, right? So like it really does. There seems to be like a principle there. It's like, hey, these people are living under tyranny. We want to free them. We want to liberate them. So we get to go to war and kill all these other people there. Like it really does
Do you
seem
want
like
to
the
be
same
presented
thing.
with this analogy? Because there is this analogy here.
Sure.
So the omitted part from the invasion of Ukraine is that, and I actually said it at the very, very start of the war, that if all they wanted to do was to protect Donbass against the invasion by the central forces from Kiev, I, as an ANCAP, I would say that part is justified. However, we know that it's not the case. They didn't just defend Donbass; they invaded and tried to take Kiev. They bombed civilians. Every time they bomb a civilian, they are violating, fundamental laws. When they annexed territory, that was clearly indicating that they didn't intend to liberate anyone. So they didn't move into the Donbass and then stop and defend themselves. That's not what they were doing.
I see.
Therefore,
So
that's
if
a
they're
false analogy.
so
And
you're
the
saying that
United
if, so
States,
you're saying that if
when we
all they
went
had
into
done, I'll go for it.
Iraq is the same thing. It's like disanalogous to the ANCAP situation you're trying to analogize.
Okay, so you're saying that if all they had done was taken the Donbass region and they sit there, that would have been justified, that would have been okay for them to invade a country.
Well, if we would discover if it's justified. So first of all, there's like layers here, right? I believe in full secession down to like the individual. So we would have to discover what do the individuals in Donbass want. What I proposed in multiple like conversations about this is that there should be no annexation and no decision until, let's say, a decade after the war. So, but I do believe that if all the militaries are like criminal and unjustified in that conflict, the Kiev one and the Russian one, they're all like imposing themselves on other people. So we're choosing the lesser evil, basically, or like the lesser violation.
Wait,
So
but
if you-
what if the children in those communities consent to having sex with adults, the 13-year-olds for all through like 18-year-olds, they all say, "Hey, Dad, I love this community. I want to
They
live
can't.
here. Please don't." Well, why can't they?
Because the
Because
adults
you
in
decided
Donbass,
arbitrarily that they can't. I'm not talking about Donbass. I'm talking about
no,
the
but
ANCAP
well, no, but
pedophile
you're trying
decision.
to switch between the two.
So,
But I want to focus on
well,
this.
because you're
Adults in
saying that it
Donbass.
depends on
Wait,
the. No, go
allow
for
me
it.
to respond. I'm actually responding. I'll respond to both. Adults in Donbass can express consent, but even with them, I would want them to have like a pause of no war, like ceasefire for 5 years, allow all the people to return, and then express their consent through like a democratic vote, at least for secession or no secession or whatever. With the children, you would have to wait to find out what they consented to until they're actual adults. So if they're
Okay, but they're going to be
13-year-olds,
adults based on your standard
my
in your
wager
community
is
that
that
they
they
haven't
can't
agreed to.
consent. My wager
Yeah.
would likely be better than yours.
Okay, but again, you're asking that they wait until they're adults by your standard. Where I think you agreed earlier that the standard's kind of arbitrary, right? It's based on like brain development or whatever the fuck. But we agree that a 25-year-old is far more developed than an 18-year-old. So why wouldn't it be okay for another community to come along and say, hey, actually, 25-year-olds are the only ones that can consent. You have 18-year-olds in your community, so we're going to come in and liberate the 18-year-olds in your community that are being enslaved. Like,
Yeah,
why?
and
It just seems like.
it's not so the word arbitrary is used falsely by most people that use it. Read the dictionary definition and read how it's actually,
Oh, the
actually
dictionary
means.
definition
It means that
argument. Love
it's
that.
based on a whim without any system, whereas I am proposing to you a system. One of the people is objectively right. So you presented 3 cases: 14-year-old, 18-year-old, and let's say 24-year-old. So one of these cases is more right objectively, but then people have a limit to their ability to discover which one of them is more correct. The more they know scientifically how the brain develops, the closer they will be to the truth. So, but one of these communities is righteous. Now, what I believe will happen is the community that believes in 18-year-old and the community that believes in 24-year-old, they will be able to compromise much easier than the crazies that believe that it's like
Why?
13
What
or
is that
15 years
community?
assume
Wait,
that?
what are you even talking about?
Casimir, what
Wait,
if?
hold on. Why would you assume that they'd be able to compromise more easily if the 25-year-old community believes that the 18-year-olds cannot even consent, that these are slaves in the same way that the 14-year-olds were?
I'm fine with them trying to assert that and escalating that. I'm
Okay,
fine
yeah,
to
so
speak to
there'd be
that
a war.
because one of them is objectively true.
One of them.
We will eventually find out. If you believe in materialism and science, we will eventually find out who is closer to the
What?
truth. Is it yes or no? Do you
This
not
is a
believe that
ridiculous
you
Can I
would
test
reject
that?
your scientific
Dude,
method?
I'd
We
really
will
like to
win the
test
war.
that
are you taking
proposition.
ayahuasca, dude? What the fuck
And
are
we go
you
to war and we
talking
kill
about?
each other to
Drazi?
figure out who's objectively
Hey,
true.
Doobie,
Yeah.
Doobie, what's your answer to the question? Do you think of the underagers? What do you, between the two of them? What's your answer?
So to the having sex with the 14-year-old thing or whatever.
Yeah,
So
what's your answer?
I think the reality is that my perspective on this is just going to be influenced or informed by the culture that I grew up in, and I was taught that it's not okay to fuck a 14-year-old or 15-year-old. So if I were there as myself today, before you get. So if I were there as myself today, I wouldn't do it because I've been taught that it's wrong. But if I grew up in that culture, I would absolutely fuck a 15
No,
or 14-year-old.
I know that. Sorry.
Why do I agree with Doobie so much
it's the
tonight?
wrong. You misunderstood the question.
Because you
Do you
like,
think
I don't
do you
know,
believe in the
I don't
United
wanna
States
say that.
today that we should like punish 2 15-year-olds for having sex with each other?
Oh,
Right.
no.
Light punishment,
I don't-
reasonable punishment, tickets and
I don't-
education.
No, I don't think so.
I think hold on. Well, it depends, right? So I might be okay with like and this is like I guess hypocritical, but so because I was sexually active at like 12 years old, right? So like,
Dude.
but I think that was a bad thing, right? To be clear, I think that was a bad thing to have
Okay,
happened.
good.
So I'd be okay with like, yeah, if we found that 15-year-olds were having sex, yeah, I'd put them into like some education thing, like, hey, this is why you should wait until you're an adult, and blah blah blah. Like that seems fine.
You never even heard why I was not okay with your punishment and stuff, Lactoid.
I said
jumped to
tickets
another
and
hypothetical.
education.
Yeah,
No, I said tickets and education.
And
I think
Lactoid
if you're
didn't
sending them
respond
to a
me at all.
class, if you're sending them
He
to a
just
class
ran.
and all that, I think that you're running a risk of fucking up their sexual development. I think if you want to sit down, if the parents want to sit down with their kids and talk to them about the concerns that they have and just sort of have them consider it and explain compassionately that what they did is pretty natural and normal. However, these are the risks that you can run into. And if they're going to continue to do this behind their back, you need to let me know so that I can make sure you're doing it safely. I think that is the better approach, because if you're just sending them to a class, it can, one, make them feel like sex is bad or wrong, and that can fuck you up in the head. But also, too, I think that gives a false sense of security that they're not going to do it anymore. And if they are going to continue to do it, you're not taking your role as a parent seriously by making sure that they have the safety precautions that they're going to need if they're going to keep on doing it.
All right, let me give you like the worst hypothetical I can think of
Sure.
then. You got a 15-year-old who, let's say, you keep putting them in health classes, and they just, as soon as they're done, they go out and they like impregnate into some other 14-year-old, and they have like 25 under their belt already. So they got like ruined 25 children's lives. At what point are you going to stop this person? How many more like teenage pregnancies are we going to tolerate before we say, look, the cops are going to stop you?
I think
Sorry.
I think at that point we need to just make birth control free at their health clinic in that town.
Wait,
Because
this is
this
like a
kid's be
sexual
macking left
assault
and
at that
right.
point. That's not as in to their
I
age.
agree with you. It's sexual assault. Yes, because they're 14.
They're sexually.
Oh, I thought they were the same still. Same age still.
No, they are. They are.
Okay.
It's a double-way sexual assault. They are sexually assaulting each other.
But what are they
Yes.
doing? They're just having consensual
So
sex,
are
and they're
It's
what,
not
tricking
consensual.
them?
They're underage of 18. It's not consensual. It can't be.
Yes, it is. If it's with
So look,
another, like in America,
Children
if
cannot
you're
consent.
under the age of 18, you can consent to have sex with each other. You cannot consent to have sex with an adult.
It's not true
You're
in every
getting that
state.
mixed up.
It's not
Well-
true in every
well,
state.
why?
Of course, it's not true in
Why
every
would they be
state.
able to
Sure.
consent? So
Hang
Nina,
on.
why would they be able to consent to sex with like?
That's
with
not what it means.
Another 15-year-old, but not to like a 25-year-old.
Well, because generally the laws just don't work the same way. Whereas,
But-
like having the consent to have sex with an adult is different.
the law doesn't care
I'm not
about
asking
consent.
about the law. I'm asking,
It,
Go
it's the age
Does a
at which
baby
you can no longer be the
consent to
victim of
being like
statutory
going to
rape.
the doctor by their parent? Like, what do you mean? You literally don't have the aspect of consent in a lot of ways when you're a child, because that's just how it works with like an adult. But when we're talking about in relationships, that's still it's not it's the adult child like a relation where you have the consent argument. That is like important when you're talking about like if like two 15-year-olds want to fuck, it's not the same argument. You're gonna, like, a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old wanting to fuck.
How many people here are over 25? 25 or over? Is everybody here 25 or over? Okay,
Yeah, we're
cool.
all- we're all
So do you remember when you
Not
were
me.
15 or 14 and you wanted to fuck one of your classmates? Do you think that you actually wanted that then? Do you think when you had those feelings, that you're like, oh, I was out of my mind. There's no way I truly wanted that.
Elder. So this is actually
Oh,
this is a
Satan
problem. This is a
remembering.
problem with human psychology. So when we look back at our past memories, we tend like memories aren't
Fix
perfect.
it then.
It's more of a play as opposed to a recording, right? People tend to review their memories with the knowledge and personality they have now, not with the knowledge and personality they had then. To be honest, at 15, no. There's no way that I had the prerequisite understanding necessary. And did I have the
Okay, let's
impulsive
get
feelings
away
too?
from that.
For
I
sure.
understand
But
what
there's
you're
no
saying.
way
I
I could
understand what you're saying.
consent. There's no way. I was 15.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but do you think that that should necessarily, as much as you know what it like felt like at the time or whatever, like you just want to get your nut off or whatever, like do you think like if it was somebody who like was really interested in you, wanted to do that things with you, because obviously like 15-year-olds like depending on how sexually active they've been
When I
or
was
whatever.
15, I would have had sex with any chick who offered it.
Sure.
100%.
That's a
Do you think-
problem.
And I would.
But do you think that
I
okay,
would
that's
not
fine.
find it to be
That's
a problem.
fine. Okay, Lactoid, that's fine that you can think that's a problem. But do you think that the solution to that is punishing them? That's going to ruin their entire fucking life.
Not ruining their entire life.
How is it not going to ruin their life? What punishment? What punishment could happen? Well, no, Casper, hold on. No, well, let's come back to you. Let's come back to you. That's fine. That's fine. Let's come back to you. I want to ask Lactoid here though. What punishment is not going to ruin their life?
The same punishment we do if we catch them underage drinking. We give them a ticket, right? you know, and
How
then
are they going to pay
and then-
for it? They're 15. They don't
So
have any
first-
money.
So
The
again, if we
Guardians pay for
How do they pay it?
again, if we catch them with alcohol, we also give them a ticket. If they really can't pay,
Do you think
there's
that's
like
also a good
ways.
idea?
There's ways that can be forgiven, or
Like
like there's like legal avenues in which like if a child is truly indignant and can't pay, then like you can't like
Okay, they don't have a
there's no-
job. They have no money.
right.
Their
I'm
parents
saying
maybe
literally
suck.
do the
Or they
same
just
thing
have
we
the
do
money.
when we catch them with whiskey, which is we give them a ticket. If they can't pay, obviously we can't collect on the ticket. But if they can pay, then we
What does
make
that
them pay the
mean?
ticket, and then we also make them go to extra classes, extra health classes, where
How
we
are they going
teach
to get to
them.
those classes? How are they going to get to those classes?
We make them as part of their education in school. We make
They
kids
can't
go to school all the time.
They can't drive. They can't drive. Are they
They
actually
go
public
to
school? They
public
go
in
to
their
schools
school?
right now. We literally
Huh?
bus them into public schools, and then what we
Okay,
do
so
is
it's
we
part of
say
their class. So it's
you
part
could
of
maybe,
their class.
you could maybe even call it detention. It's a crazy concept where you have to stay after the class and
Okay.
you have to take extra classes on why you shouldn't be going
You
and
really
having
think
sex.
you really think that's going to make them better off? You really think that's going to help anything of their life to make them do like to punish them like that?
Yes,
All they
intervening
did
and
is they wanted
stopping.
to fuck.
Sorry,
Yeah,
guys, I can't
yes,
play Xbox. I gotta go to the class I have to go to because I fucked my girlfriend.
I am not comfortable with like a bunch of 16-year-olds organizing an orgy over Snapchat. Okay, I'm not
Okay, that's
comfortable.
not what we're talking. We're not talking
Wait,
about. We're
what
not
problem
talking
do you
about
have
that. We're
with
not
that?
talking about that.
Wait.
We're
What problem do you? What
No,
problem do
we're
you have?
talking
with that?
about we're talking about one person fucking their
Would
girlfriend.
you punish
and they're
them?
two
Would you stop
15-year-olds.
them?
I fucked my boyfriend when I was 15, and
I'm
he was
asking
15.
you what you did. I'm asking
I'm
you.
saying, do you think I should have gotten punished for that?
Yes.
I should have had to go to
Anybody? Yes.
after school classes. Did you fuck any
Yes.
like when did you first
You
have
think-
sex?
I was
What is the role
19.
of the Guardian?
Okay, because
Oh, that's
I'm
why
a
you have this
properly
point of view.
developed
That's
person,
why you have
okay?
this point of view. It makes a lot of fucking
and
sense
now
now,
look-
doesn't it?
Guardian.
yeah.
Oh my
and
god.
Lactoid.
It-
What
Well,
is
you
a
were
Look at me
25,
compared to
you
other
need to
people on the
be
panel.
punished.
I'm just saying.
Has
Oh,
sex at,
Doobie,
at,
what is a
if you have
guardian?
sex at 19, it turns you to a libertarian. So be warned, parents.
Oh no,
Okay,
this
but-
thing.
but like, no, I hear you. I hear your friend. No, look, I think that I don't know. I have a problem with the punishment you were talking about, not because I don't think we can't deliver a punishment or that like it's not a thing that we do. Like we do these things at the time. I have a problem with it because I don't want the criminal justice system involved. I want to lower the amount of time that chances that criminal justice systems interacts with kids. Like you're saying, well, if someone is too poor to pay, then there are options for them. But then that's like it creates a further barrier, and that like I guess you got to go to court and prove that, like,
Community
being
service.
indicted.
Are you
Uh,
going to
If they can't pay, we make them go
How
pick
are
up.
they gonna
If
get
they
to
can't
the
pay,
community service,
if they
my
can't pay,
guy?
we will bus them over to the highway and they can pick up trash. They
So
can
you
learn
want slave labor?
the
You want
value of hard
slave
work.
labor, Lactoid? You understand
Community
what you're saying?
service is slave labor.
Yes, it is if it's mandatory.
Well, I mean, it is
Who is the
literally.
Guardian Prime Keys?
Yeah, I guess jury duty is
Who is the
also
Guardian,
slavery.
Jazzy?
I guess
No,
every
but you know, fuck, you know,
Hello?
criminal.
Who's the
taxes
Guardian?
are slavery. If we want to get really into it, that is true.
No, it's not.
Who is the
Once you're
Guardian?
working, you're taking the money I get from
If you
working.
don't work, you
I
don't pay
know.
taxes, you idiot. That's the
Let's not
exact
go down that
opposite of
road.
that.
Let's
Oh,
not go
I
down
have
that
to work,
road.
otherwise I'll
We're not gonna go
die.
down
The
that road.
Guardian.
Okay, but you don't have to pay taxes, so shut the fuck up on that.
So it's slavery. Either you work
Who
or
is
die.
the
True?
Guardian?
Why? Why are you asking
Okay, well, you
this?
know,
Who is
you
the-
don't get a choice if you're in
Casimir,
jail.
Guardian
no,
is
no,
the
no,
one
no,
that's
I don't
at
care
fault.
about the taxes.
Slave
Casimir,
labor is literally legal
Cas-
if you're in jail.
You're dodging
Casimir.
the actual answer.
Casimir.
The legally, the 13th Amendment has an exception for punishment for a crime, okay? It is
Everybody
Yes.
perfectly
wrong,
legal
and
to do that.
Lactoid is wrong.
Yes.
And Lactoid is running away from me because he's a coward.
I didn't even know you were
From
talking.
you?
Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
What
didn't
are
realize
you
was talking to
saying?
you. You're
No.
kind of quiet, but maybe we shouldn't have told him that.
Do you understand what the role of
It's
the
not
Guardian
louder,
is?
it's just more annoying. You're doing a little Haas thing.
Do you
Do
understand
I?
the role
Yeah,
of
the Guardian
Who is
is.
the Guardian? Answer the
Yeah.
question.
The Guardian is responsible for making sure the kids are engaging in healthy choices.
No, the Guardian is responsible for any crime committed by that child. If the child shoots someone, then the parents, they're the ones being charged with negligence, with providing weapons to a minor. They're the ones who are going to go to prison. You know that as a lawyer.
Wait,
So
no, that's not
you say
true.
children are going to be punished.
You're
and
not-
You're not saying what's legally correct.
Wait,
which is the
wait,
Guardian's going to be punished.
Wait, Casimir, you just said you know this as a lawyer. You're just what do you mean? If you're a 15-year-old and you shoot and kill another 15-year-old, You are going to prison, not your parents.
When the court determines that you acted as an adult, they will have to make the determination that you had the mind state of an adult and that your guardian was not the one that provided you with access to that gun. But I believe that's wrong in our society, and I'm asking you to be more consistent.
Wait, then why are you saying I should know this as a lawyer?
The reason I'm asking you this is because you keep pushing this idea that an inconsistent idea that on one hand, they have no ability to consent, which you're right about. And then you say that they can be punished, which you're wrong about. You need to be able to consent to be able to be punished. If you can't consent, you can't be punished. The guardian is the one who should be punished because it's their responsibility that you got access to impregnate that young girl. It's their responsibility if you get access to a weapon. It's their responsibility if you didn't find yourself back from school and ended up in a gang somewhere. It's the responsibility of the parents. And if the parents are not fulfilling those responsibilities, then as a society, we should possibly replace them.
Okay, I don't. Right, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I don't agree. For me,
Why?
the goals of the criminal justice system.
The reason why you disagree.
I'm in the middle of it.
He's about to tell you.
My goals when it comes to criminal justice and reforming criminals is rehabilitation and restitution. Those are my twin goals. Okay, I want to make sure this person's reasonably not going to do it again, and I want to make sure that their victim is made whole. When it comes to children, there is also another element here, which is because they can't consent, what's in their best interest? So the question is making because in the same way we make children go to school in their best interest, we make children eat their broccoli in their best interest. If a parent is not feeding a child and they're malnourished, we say, no, you have to do that, parent. We're going to make you do that because that is in the best interest of the child. If you have a child who's engaging in drinking alcohol or having underage sex or smoking cigarettes or whatever the fuck, yes, the punishment should be aimed. There's no restoration because there's no I guess lost value. There is rehabilitation and trying to make sure the child is in the best position. And what's the best way to do this in my mind? Make them go to extra classes. Make them learn why no, you should not be having sex at 15 or 16. Why you should wait till you're 18. Right? We're going to make you go to these classes, and just so you can't blow it off, we're going to give you a ticket. And you might have to go to some community service and pick up some trash and learn some work ethic in order to pay it off.
Okay, but you're punishing them for just like fucking
for having sex with a child. I am punishing them for having sex with a child.
For
yes.
being a child and having sex with another child.
They're still having sex with a child.
Okay, I had sex when I was 16. Did I have sex with a child?
Were they under 18? If so, yes.
They were.
By definition, you were. I mean, am I wrong?
17.
Then yeah.
That's how psychotic your point of view is. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Drazzy?
Well, Lactoid, why aren't you out there like protesting super hardcore in the states where the legal age of consent is 16 then? They're letting people fuck children, according to you.
It's totally fucked up. I've long said, like, yeah, we should use it, like, especially with these fucked up countries like Japan that have this like crazy.
That's the United States.
I know. But then Japan is 13, right? America, we're fucked. Like on a couple things, we're not as bad as some other countries. But yeah, I do.
16-year-olds fucking like 9-year-olds like the same.
Nobody thinks that's the same. Nobody thinks that's the same.
No.
Okay, but he said it's just the same as fucking a child. So.
When a child drinks alcohol, is no one got damaged? Is that what you said, Lactoid? Really? You were going to assert that when a child drinks, like gets drunk,
no, for restitution. For restitution, like if you drink alcohol, who do you owe money to?
Yes. Start using that thing inside your brain. They damage themselves, but they don't control themselves.
That's why we stop them.
Therefore, the guardians owe the child.
What if they're guardians? What if they don't have guardians or their guardians are shit?
One moment. Before you go into the what if they do have a guardians. If they do have parents, then those parents, when their child gets drunk, the child's body gets damaged. And so when the child gains representation by a lawyer or when they become an adult, they can contest the guardianship. They can say, my parents allowed me to drink, therefore they endangered my body and they damaged it. And now they owe me, meaning there is going to be a trust, and when they become an adult, they get paid that sum of money or something equivalent.
Yeah, I would add that too. I would add that too. The issue, I would add that too. I would add that too, especially if a parent like knows about it and facilitates it. But here's the reality, which is that
like, does that make you feel a certain type of way that you have the exact same viewpoint as somebody like Kamala Harris, who thought that parents should be arrested because their kids played hooky?
Lactoid.
Real quick, I'll answer that question just 1 second. Casimir, here's the point though. I understand that could be an idea, but parenting is not like constant. I'm watching you at all times. Helicopter parenting. The parents always know what the kid's doing. Okay, if you're a parent, how the fuck are you supposed to know if during lunchtime one of your like kids near to well friends doesn't sneak in a fifth of vodka and gives it to him? How do you know? Why should you be punished as a parent if you had no idea, you were against it, you told your kid not to do it, but he did it anyway?
I'll explain to you. So that, again, you should just, instead of asking a question and imagining that there's no possible answer and considering every answer ridiculous, you should start thinking it through. So what you expressed is a situation where a child ended up in school, right? He's not homeschooled, is at another school. That means that the guardians transferred their guardianship temporarily to an agent, which is the school. So if under that school's monitoring, there was contraband introduced and the child was damaged in the school is the one who's responsible. And so now the child is damaged, so any restitution is paid to the child from the school to the guardian saved in trust. That would be consistent. And yes, if you don't want to helicopter parents, I agree with that. But then you would have to concede to many more awful things. So it is a wager you have to take. If you fail to educate your children to the level where they independently don't commit crimes, then you are liable for the crimes they do commit.
You can't always do that. And if you got a kid who's a problem kid, they keep getting in trouble over and over again. Like, at what point the school is like, we don't have the resources to handle this kid. What are they supposed to do? Just kick the kid out?
You have two options. You either homeschool, and again, listen, we're talking about a normal thing, an average thing, and now you're making it a hypothetical where they're like a troubled kid with a known history.
This is very normal.
If this is very normal, then they should be either homeschooled or in a special institution where their needs are taken care of. That's the consistent answer. Why are you running away from it?
And what if they get alcohol in that special institution?
Again,
what if they have sex in the special institution?
Then he would just say that guardianship has been transferred.
Yes, but there's still there is still damage that occurred. Somebody has to pay for it to the child.
I got one more question. What if you're 16 years old and you figure out that if you keep messing up, you can eventually sue the school for money? And so now you have a perverse incentive to drink as much alcohol as possible, because then when you turn 18, you sue the school and get a whole bunch of money. So you intentionally try to like underhandedly sneak alcohol in and underhandedly like sneak cigarettes and have sex and everything just so you can sue the school. How would you stop that?
Yes, and you would have to deal with that using your full extent of your guardianship, which if that child is not an adult, meaning they can't make those decisions, you would have to restrict their freedom from doing so. And what would
punishment?
What would happen to them is the first time they succeeded in committing a crime, including against themselves, then the next time you would either know better or don't. If you don't know better, meaning if you don't restrict their access to it by some means, then you should give them up. You should find someone who's capable of doing so. That's the consistent position.
A ridiculous.
You want to run away from it.
This is a ridiculous system, and I think that's like I think this is obvious to everyone else. Yes, I am ridiculous. It is me. I am the ridiculous one here, indeed.
You're the one with 1.3
you found me.
children per adult and female.
Found
1.3 children. Your population is dying. It's like nosediving in the cities.
You found me.
I thought you were American.
Yes, in America. Your population is 1.3. You're agnostic, right?
Yes, indeed. You got it. You got me.
Yeah, we really care.
We've all got your brilliant ANCAP mind. Understood. Look, your brilliant ANCAP mind has solved everything. So moving on. I want to just try to engage my man Doobie for a little bit of time here. Doobie, if you're still there.
Yeah.
So the original thing we were going to talk about were age gap relationships among adults. But of course it's spoiled here, even though I really designed the question to focus above, but we ended up below. So you think age gap relationships are inherently toxic?
No, I can't even say that. Right? It's just it's like a it's hard for me to like so short of like the development thing, right? Like so if someone's like 18 years old and they're fucking a 60-year-old dude or a 60-year-old woman, like I think it seems weird because of the difference in like life experience and like just like development, right? But like beyond that, I don't know how to express why it's icky, to be honest with you. And it could just be because this is like a culturally ingrained thing. I've been taught to think this is icky, so I feel like it's icky. Because I mean, I can think of like hypotheticals where like a rich Will Smith's kids, for example, when they were underage, they have lots of social clout, lots of financial means. So would it be like how would they be the one exploiting the being exploited in the situation if they were to have sex with like an adult, right? Like a janitor, right? Someone with no financial means, no social capital, etc. Like I don't know. Like I think you can come up with like weird situations where it's like stretched a little bit, but I think generally like um I would just prefer for people to date or fuck within like a year range of like, half your age plus 7 seems fine.
Can we just agree that context matters? I think, Doobie, you and I probably agree the most out of anybody who's already the context matters more than the age gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
That's pretty much my point. If somebody is legal age of consent, you look at the context. You don't look at the numbers.
Like, dude, I can't imagine you'd be interested in somebody who's in high school.
I think you should be able to imagine me or any adult being interested in fucking an 18-year-old. Like plenty of 18-year-olds look fully developed. They look
Okay, but
like
why?
full
Okay,
women.
imagine going on a date. I mean,
Have you
you have a
talked to one,
girlfriend now
though?
currently, right?
Well, that's the
You have a
thing. So
girlfriend-
speaking to an 18-year-old, so
Right.
speaking to an 18-year-old, I would like my penis would shrivel up, right? Like it'd be a bad thing.
Right.
But if I didn't, but if I wasn't talking to them, if I was just like looking, I'm like, oh, they have a nice body. I think that nice body is going to attract me whether or not they're 18 years old, right? And there are tons of 18-year-olds out there who are like fully developed and have like nice bodies.
Okay, but if you're
So-
if you're going out of your way to go out to talk to 18-year-old girls and you're like in your 30s or whatever, and you're trying to like get to the point where you're like, yeah, I'll take care of you, whatever, like, and like you're because we're not talking about
This
fucking,
is
we're talking
context.
about in a relationship, right? Like that would be like insanely inappropriate. I mean, I think it would be either way, but like you would agree with me in that, like, okay, so you're spending the time talking to this person that you and me are assuming would be in some way incredibly insufferable in terms of like a relationship, like a romantic
I
one,
mean,
right?
yeah, but like even that's not necessarily the case, right? Like there are plenty of
Okay, but people
18-year-olds who
do
like
that though. You know that people do that.
Yeah. He knows.
So if you're
But,
talking about like,
Doopy,
if you're talking about like
Right.
yeah, so if you're talking about like someone like intentionally like ignoring how annoying they think an 18-year-old is because they want to fuck
Yes.
them, and they're
Yes.
specifically targeting 18-year-olds. Yeah, that's fucking weird. Right?
Yeah, they
That's
have a
I mean,
probably
is
weird
someone
that
who's
fetish.
happens?
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I'm sure it happens. I mean, of course it happens, right? But I don't know like how much further I can say than oh, it's weird, a little bit creepy. This is probably not
Right,
behavior
but
that we
you're
should
saying like
encourage.
you don't understand why that happens. Is like I think that you can wrap your head around why that happens is because they are just like disgusting pedophiles.
No, it's
Pedophiles don't
not. That's
fuck
not why.
And I'm
adults.
not saying you are,
So typically,
obviously. I'm just saying like the
no,
fact
hold
that
on.
you
So
don't
yeah, so
understand it. I'm trying to bridge the gap
it's like
here.
so typically it's like a youth thing. They find it attractive because they're younger, they're pure, they're fresh, they're clean, they're not
Well, they're
like
idiots.
used up
And you can
20-something-year-olds old.
manipulate them easily. Yeah.
That too. Oh, that too. But there are also plenty of like mid or late 20s, early 30s adults who are fucking idiots who are easy to manipulate, right?
Maybe they just want to
So, like, I don't know
recapture
if
their
that's,
youth. They wanna fuck the girls they couldn't when they were
They want
broke.
Or
to
there's
suck
an
the blood
assumption
out
that
of
they're
them,
tighter, right? And that's literally all it is. They're tighter,
which
they
is
can
just
fuck
not
better,
true.
and that's it.
no, I wouldn't know. But okay, so but like you said something interesting, Nina. You talked about like the
Mhm.
proposition, like a 30-year-old going to an 18-year-old and saying, "Oh well, I'll take care of you," and like this as an example of a bad thing. But like move that age up, right, to a 25-year-old or to a 30-year-old, and you have plenty of 30-year-old women looking to older men to take care of them financially, right? Like,
Wait, so you're like a
is that
30-year-old versus like a 38-year-old?
yeah, like well,
Okay, but you
30-year-old in
understand
this
that
case
the
between
okay,
a 30-year-old
right,
woman
right,
and a
right, right.
55-year-old man, like that
Absolutely.
would, yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, so the biggest difference is okay, what is an 18-year-old? Does an 18-year-old have their own things? Do they have their own life? Do they have their own property? Have they lived their own life? No,
Sometimes
they've been living with their parents. They're gonna
Sometimes.
just no, an
context
18-year-old
matters.
an 18-year-old has not lived their own independent life. Come on.
And
Unless
Wait,
they're
hold
like
on,
in
but
a very
Nina, don't you
like
A lot of
think that?
dramatic
30-year-olds I know
re-
have not lived their own independent life.
Okay, but are they living with their
Nina,
parents?
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Sure,
Nina,
I'm
do
sure
you think that?
sometimes, but
Do
it's
you
the
think that?
majority of them living with their parents.
Nina,
Is
I'll
the
give you
majority
this.
of 30-year-olds? No, we don't need to say this. Is the majority of 30-year-olds this living with their parents the same way that the majority of 18-year-olds are?
Probably
What
less
difference
for
does it make?
less as a total percentage, but could I have sex with a 30-year-old who did live with their parents up until 30
Okay,
years
but
old?
what do you know? Lactoid, stop it. You're being dumb. You know you are. Like,
Yeah,
you
fuck
know
you,
what I'm
Lactoid.
Stop
saying
being
here.
dumb, Lactoid.
You know what I'm saying here. You're going to tell me that the 30-year-old is going to have the same, like, experience, like, understand the world the same way an 18-year-old does?
Potentially
There are
even less.
some
Yeah,
worldly
they're, like,
18-year-olds.
mega
Like
autistic,
people.
sure, but, like, what the fuck?
Well,
You
No,
know what I'm
hold on.
talking about.
Nina, there is absolutely some 45-year-old men who
Yeah,
cannot
idiots, sure.
mentally. Okay, what does that mean? They're idiots. Maybe they're perfectly fine in every other part of their life, but they
Okay,
they
but
have
you're saying that's
emotional
the majority.
sensitivity
That's
to
the
where
majority.
they're
That's the
okay.
majority. So
You
you're
don't
telling me, oh,
wait.
Hold on, Nina,
Please,
Nina,
please,
Nina.
please tell
You
me what
gotta
I was
let-
gonna
you gotta
say.
talk.
Okay, I'm saying
Razzie.
there are some 45-year-old
listening.
men that have an emotional problem to where they would not be okay to have sex. And I think everybody can acknowledge that. There are some 18-year-olds that are so fucking ready to have sex. They've already done it. They're fine with it. They're completely unfazed by it. I don't know why we're working with the majority on this. That doesn't
okay,
really make
because what we're
sense.
talking about is the unhealthy relationship between the difference between having a 30-year-old dating a 38-year-old versus an 18-year-old dating a 30-year-old.
Yeah, but my whole argument is that context matters more than numbers, and that's what I'm trying to get you to recognize. And you're ignoring that. And I think that
Context matters more than numbers. I don't understand what you mean by that, but I
Okay.
think I might agree with that. I'm not sure what you're trying to explain.
Did you hear the
My
example
point is,
I
I
gave?
was directly talking against Lactoid here, where he was saying that like dating a 30-year-old dating a 38-year-old is the same as a 18-year-old dating like a whatever, like a 4-year-old or whatever.
I
So
agree with him.
I said 30 and
28-year-old.
55-year-old. So that you were discussing that with
No,
me.
no, I was going off of
Um,
what Lactoid said. I wasn't going off of what you said.
Okay, so let's engage with what I say then. All right. So
Okay.
there are 30-year-old women,
Mhm.
and we'll just use women for an example, but it can happen
Sure.
with men as well. But 30-year-old women
Absolutely.
who are looking to older men, let's say 55, we're just going to go with that, who
Okay.
to take care of them. Right. In fact, I see it literally all the time on so many YouTube.
Well, are you specifically talking about sugar babies, or are we talking about just
No,
like
I'm not talking about sugar babies. I'm just talking about regular people.
Well,
And
you
they
said take care
they're
of them, though.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said.
Okay.
When we're talking about women who are in their 30s, who said like an ideal partner that I want is a person. Well, they got to be 6 foot and above, right? Because of course,
Okay.
and they got to
Okay.
make a certain amount of money, and so that
Mhm.
I can stay at home. Like there are an endless like string of women who say exactly that, who want to be in effect taken care of by
Okay.
someone else. So how is that different from an 18-year-old like to a 30-year-old, right? 18-year-old woman to a 30-year-old woman, 30-year-old man. How is that a different relationship? Is one worse than the other? Are these two things just a
Well,
thing that a
you
person
very
can
much
desire?
are saying it's intention. So
Intention.
we're getting a little bit off the rails with what I thought we started with, where you're now saying that the intention is they want to be taken care of, right?
Because you brought this up. You brought this up previously.
I didn't bring it up.
Yes, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. You
When
said
did I
that
bring it
like I'll tell you right now, right? You
Go ahead.
talked about a 30-year-old like who was looking around for 18-year-olds, like going to different places, and he said, and the proposition that you that he was using was that, hey, I'll take care of you. That's what came out of your mouth. You brought up that proposition.
Mm,
Okay, great. So that's what you said, and that's why I'm
Did I?
gauging with this. Yeah, you did.
Okay.
So can you
And
engage with the?
right. So what are you relating that back to?
I'm relating it back to you.
Okay, no. But my entire point was not about being taken care of. My aspect was the exact opposite of the somebody seeking to take care of somebody else. So that's why I'm confused. If I did say that, I'm not gonna accuse you of lying or something, because
Okay.
maybe I did say
Okay.
something like that. But like I don't think that was the main
Is it
point.
wrong for a 30? Is it wrong for a 30-year-old to look for 18-year-olds exclusively,
Yes.
18-year-olds, right? And
Yes.
then go with them like and try to lure them of a proposition of, hey, I'll take care of you because they are.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Okay. So yes, and the reason why I think that is because you're going like right after like, oh, you don't like your home life with your parents? I can be like basically your daddy. Like, the cliche of like the dad issues. Like it's
It's
very manipulative
context.
because they don't have a lot of, yeah, it is context. And it's very much like the issue of are they going to be independent and they're going into a relationship with you because they are interested in a relationship with you because they want to be in a relationship with you, or are they going to go into a relationship with you under the intents of like, oh, I want to leave my parents, maybe I don't like my
I want
parental
to.
situation, I want to be like maybe you have like a house or
Sure,
whatever,
sure.
or whatever, like, but now I'm leaving
Or
someone who has control over
or
me and going into another
or sure,
mechanism that
this
is
is perfect. This is perfect because
okay.
right, as a 30-year-old woman to getting involved with the 55-year-old male with the
Mhm.
same intentions, right? Hey, I want to leave my working situation, right? Like I'm in a position where I
Well,
have
you
very
think your
little
job is the
power.
same as your parents?
It can be worse. It can be far more abusive
Yep.
and far more disempowering.
Okay, but you're also an adult. You still have the parents
Yeah.
there first.
So
Also.
like what? So you have your parents.
Okay, so this is kind of like the argument where it comes with like, okay, it's like the business people being like, okay, the business owners, it's their risk, right? They're the one doing the risk. They're financially putting up their money to put up the risk. And what is the risk, right? The risk is them becoming the worker again. It's kind of the same argument where it becomes like, oh, what's the risk there? Where you just have to live with your parents again. So if the parents are like
If you
fine,
that's if
then
you have
we're not
that's if
really
you
having the
have a
same
safety
argument,
net.
right?
You are perfectly aware that some people don't have a safety net. And so like you are in a perilous job situation, which can be
Okay, so
extremely
if you lose your
abusive
job, you can't move
for all
back in with
kinds
your
of.
family?
Yeah, you can move back in your family. We'll say that,
Okay, so
right?
then now we're back where we started. So what does it matter the job aspect of it? If is that your
Yes.
point that
So
it's the
the
same?
point is that
Okay.
like it's the same proposition. Whether
Okay.
the 18-year-old wants to go with the 30-year-old because of they they love them, right, and want to be within that relationship, which
Mm,
apparently is fine, or there's like, I want to escape of the power of my family, and so I'll go with you. I'll be under your power. The same, you can relate that to a 30-year-old woman who
yeah,
is
but does an
in some sort of
18-year-old have a career?
perilous job situation, and they're saying, I want to escape this and go under your power, being the 55-year-old.
Okay, so you think that an 18-year-old should go into a relationship with a 30-year-old because they should look at it like a career?
Okay. Look, I'm just never mind. I'm just like relating two things and comparing and
No, I mean,
contrasting.
like, are you not
So
understand what I'm saying?
well, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I don't think you understand what I'm
Well,
saying.
can
I've
you?
explained it like
So is
four
my
times.
question that I just asked you just did not
I
relate to what
just
you said?
don't worry about it. I
But you're saying
mission
that, like an
accomplished.
abusive career aspect of it. Like, I understand like
Mm,
the the shitty aspect of like capitalism, blah blah blah.
mission accomplished. Okay, all right. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna go to the
Really?
rock on
Okay.
panel. Right after this. Stick around if you liked it. Hit that follow button right now. In case you haven't done so already. If you're new to the channel, hit that follow button. Be greatly appreciated. We'd love to have you here. Thank you. A little bit for having gifted that sub to Fnatic. Previously, Aiko for resubbing, and Turk Nutella for uh, using your
Don't
Prime
tell them.
gaming for 6 months. So thank you so much. But we do need more support. So guys, if you can, please do help out the channel, like so we can have more of these conversations. We do need a lot more support. So consider subbing. Like you know, if you're out there haven't subbed, you'll get after viewing, you'll get our emotes, and you'll be keeping us up and running. We do need your support. We don't have that, we can't do any of this. So sub to the channel, get bits or get subs. We're out there. If you appreciate what we're doing, if you find yourself coming back week after week, consider supporting this channel, support what we're doing, so I can provide more of this for you. So we'll have more content after this, but yeah, an open panel which you can join in if you like. But again, we do need some support, so consider helping us out by get this up to see if we can get a hype train started. So sub to the channel, give bits or give subs to keep us up and running. All right. While we're waiting for that kind of support, hopefully it'll come soon. We'll go to our friend Lactoid. Lactoid, thank you for being here. Putting up with all you should have not been dumb today, though. I think maybe you should have avoided that.
I should have not what?
You should have not been dumb. You're being
Oh,
dumb earlier, so try to not do that in the future.
Yeah, no, I'm always dumb, but in the best ways, Prime. You know, everyone loves it. Thank you Prime, for having me on. Thank you all for talking to me. Just wanted to say I'm really happy with this. Just recently, a couple days ago, I was 250 followers, so it's fucking awesome, and I couldn't have done it without all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're interested and if you like what I had to say, you can find me at Blacktoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Yeah, thank you all so much.
Yeah. Hit up our friend. Did I spell this wrong? At Lactoid TV. LACTOID.
Looks right to me.
Yeah, it didn't do a thing. Okay, well, it didn't do the thing. I don't know. Well, maybe you have to type in chat. I don't know to make it work. Okay. All right. There we go. Actually, no, it's not working. Type in chat something. And then maybe it'll work. So let's go to our friend Casimir. But yeah, guys, everyone, let's support our friend Lactoid. Let's try it again. Because he has been with us for so long, and just one of our kindest supporters. Just like whenever I can like always rely on my friend Lactoid, and he comes in here and he makes like great points. Whether I agree with him or disagree with him, he always brings the fire. So shout out to my man Lactoid.
Yeah, but he's Canadian.
Yeah. Well, look, I've come to peace with it. I think we all should. One day I'll have better friends, and by that I mean ones who are loyal to the flag.
Who irons their
the
fucking
American
flag?
It's tea stained.
I mean, you piss on the flag. I don't know what else I could say. Casimir, more of an American. Look at it. Even he has a proper flag in the background. Casimir, thank you so much. I don't question your citizenship, or your status. But Casimir, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I always like to bring some spice. If you want to see some of my responses to various things and references to good articles, check me out on Twitter at Free Casimir. And about this last topic, a really good paper you should all check out was written by Ian Hersom. It's called A Rational Theory for the Rights of Children. It really goes through all of these arguments. If you don't believe I presented them really well, perhaps you're right. Go look at that paper. It goes like really, really basic, builds up where these rights come from, how we should treat them, um, you know, how to think about them in a clear way that's intuitive. I think it's a really, really good article, and it quotes some really strong papers as well. So, A Rational Theory for the Rights of Children by Ian Hersom. If you'll see like the authentic proper libertarian position not like
Ooh.
anything loony or
Ooh.
misrepresented.
Okay.
Libertarian fight about to happen. You better watch out.
Mm.
A
do
shout
it.
across the
We miss
bow,
Scott.
my fan
One on
Lactoid.
one.
Lactoid, I think you're the consummate libertarian. So I can't insult you any worse than that. So moving on to Elder Dressing.
I really appreciate you having me and tolerating my funny little Canadian flag after you talk shit about Canada. I guess it seems mostly appropriate to end it by saying, you know, I genuinely, legitimately used to be a staunch libertarian, but talking to libertarians fucking ruined that shit so fast. Like, you just all in my own head, it made perfect sense. I started talking to you crazy fucks, and I was so done. I was like, it's impossible to have a conversation with any of you. I really liked being here. This was fun. Although I am still a little bit disturbed that I agreed with Doobie more than every other time I've seen him combined tonight. So I'm gonna go see my doctor tomorrow. But thank you very. Oh, and Twitch TV Elderdrazi, Twitter Elderdrazi, YouTube, all those things. And support Primecayes. The best way to support Primecayes is to go to twitch.tv/Elderdrazi and hit the sub button.
It has begun. Doobie's conversion of you, right? Like this is the process. You start with just little things. You're like, I guess that
True.
makes sense, right?
I had
Yeah,
already agreed.
Nina's like 20% of the way through the process, but I'll get it there.
And eventually, like you'll be you'll be questioning democracy.
Wait to see that happen.
We'll get there. And guys, please do support if you can. We haven't seen any support yet. Consider subbing to the channel, gifting bits or gifting subs. Help us keep us afloat. So if you're out there, use your Prime Gaming here. That's a huge help. So help us out. Like if you have the ability and we find something. I know a lot of you do. Come back here, right? So like consider supporting this channel so that we can provide more of this for you. So we do need your help. Let's go to our friend Nina.
Always a pleasure being on this show. My dogs always act up as soon as I'm supposed to talk, of course. Corgi Cam. One little thing there. But thank you so much, Ryan, for having me on the show. It's always great to see all of you guys. Kashmir was giving me an aneurysm. But always good to see Doobie and Lactoid, especially and Elder. I feel like we're like kindred spirits in ways where we hate the libertarians in the same way. It was also very nice to meet our friend earlier. Fantastic. I think that he was very passionate about that, and Jesus Christ, sorry, somebody did a donation on my thing and it was really loud. But yeah, no, I always love being on Primecayes. Absolutely, anyone. My audience, please give him some support as well. Give him some follows, give him some love, all of that, because I think the platform is always really nice because that's the only time I'm ever going to talk to Lacto that's real here.
And this is the time where Lactoid gets to be corrected, right? Like someone's got to regulate him. I've done a bad job.
My flag's better.
All right, yeah, and not upside down apparently.
It is not upside down.
Okay, all right. So we true patriots all around. Lactoid lacking. Let's go to our friend, our Dark Lord and Savior, Doobie. I was lost without you, friend. Last week, but you came through, and it was a really good discussion. And Fanatic didn't get to make it through. But Doobie, you're always here, and you're always kind and loyal to the community. So thanks so much, friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Doobie from the Politics server, discord.gg/politics, the best and biggest politics server on the Discord platform. We are having an AMA next Friday with the Pop Brothers Attorneys at Laws, I think was what they're called. California attorneys, decades of experience, focusing primarily on like criminal defense of people with marijuana charges, and more recently on focus on like marijuana legalization, and then the helping people get through the process of starting up a marijuana business. So pretty
Are they
interesting. time.
content creators or is it just?
Yeah, they're like
because-
YouTubers, but
Gotcha.
they're primarily like lawyers.
They got great commercials, by the way.
Yeah.
And actually
Okay.
helpful commercials because
That's really cool.
they tell you what to do when interrogated by a police officer, which is shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Oh, it's those guys.
Yeah, it's those guys.
They have good videos.
Well, that's like every illiterate.
A lot of people don't know. A lot of people think you can talk to
Fair.
the cops and it'll help you. It will never ever help you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bruce Rivers. Just stop self snitching.
So if you want to be a part
I'm
of
sorry.
that,
Go ahead, Doobie.
Switchfoot do
that
be in
was it.
chat. Yeah.
Oh.
That's his Discord server link. I've never heard of these individuals, but they sound sort of interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you all so much. And we will continue on to Open Walk On panel. And anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, energy, your knowledge, and your passion for my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
See you later.
Take care.